us this morning. So, as we all know, we're right here across the street from DG Agri, Copa Cogeca, ELO, Forum for the Future, but this is where regeneration happens. This is where we're starting. We are so happy to be here. My name is Megan Sapp. I'm the Advocacy and External Relations Director for the European Alliance for Regenerative Agriculture. I'm also one of the founding farmers. I am so proud to be here with almost a dozen of my fellow founding farmers from all over Europe. This event is for you guys. This is where all of the noise gets to go away. This is where all of the claims about greenwashing or we can't scale up or there's too much risk or any of these. This is where the farmers are going to tell you straight from their experiences, straight from their mouths, what their journeys have been, their barriers, and how they've gotten around them. So we've got this set up so we have a lot of time with our farmers, but even more importantly, a lot of Q&A time. So please, we're going to have a Slido we're going to be able to use. Keep your hands warmed up and ready to ask questions, because what we're really trying to do here, and with your guys' help, we are going to be taking back the narrative about regenerative agriculture and putting it back in the hands of the farmers where it deserves. So, let's kick off. Well, gosh. Thanks, I just got going. So as I mentioned before, we have the Slido there, so please feel free to hook up into that with the QR code. As I mentioned, we're just going to be talking a lot with our farmers this morning, but also a lot of our work as EARA is facilitating conversations, co-creating spaces, and ensuring that that dialogue is constant, evolving, regenerating. And so we've got a number of experts, researchers, scientists who are also joining us so that we can be talking about regenerative agriculture from the lens of agroecology, from conservation agriculture, so from organics as well, so that we can be having this open space where we can get everything cleared up. And that's going to be the opening for our week. So, this is me, my husband, 2 of my 5 lawn mowing horses. We've been regenerative farmers for the past 6 years. We have a small 3.5 hectare place in the north of Spain between Pamplona and San Sebastian. Yes, you can all be jealous. We have market garden. We raise laying hens, fattening chickens, turkeys, a couple of goats, 2 very large dogs. And what we do there, that's our learning farm. So we are the hub for the Savory Institute for Northern Spain and France, which means that people really from all over Europe come to learn with us, see what our transition and our regeneration journey has been, skill up, and then hopefully go on to do their own projects and to do their own work on the farm. But the reason why we are here is really so that it's clear that this isn't just something that we made up. This isn't just something that we are trying to change the narrative from what it was or what it could be. This is what it is. The farm that my husband and I bought 10 years ago had been managed by the conventional dairy in our valley. It basically was a dumping ground for dairy slurry. I cannot tell you how compacted it was, how much nitrogen was in the soil. When we took it over, my husband asked, did we just buy a thistle farm? Because it was so compacted. We had 2-meter-high thistles all over the place. But as you can see now, that's no longer the case, thanks to the work that we did with holistic blend grazing and our animals. But this isn't about me. This is about all of us. So as we were saying, this European Regeneration Week is kicking off our European Regeneration Tour. Over the next 2 years, alongside the CAP reform process, we will be hitting about a dozen European countries where we are going to be having these exact kind of experiences, where we are bringing together people to discuss challenges, opportunities, real-life examples, and then see how we as actors across the agri-food ecosystem can be working together to really catalyze and kickstart the changes that our agri-food ecosystem needs. We can't be waiting for the European Commission, the Parliament, the Council to go and make the changes that we need. So we need to be kicking them forward. And that's what we're here to do during this 2-year process, and kicking that here off this week in Brussels. So many of you probably already know who is EARA, but for those of you who don't, the European Alliance for Regenerative Agriculture was created just under a year and a half ago. We have really shot out like a cannon because it was the moment for us to be bringing the voices of our progressive farmers to Brussels, because there is no more time to wait. We are here with an extremely diverse group of farmers from all across Europe, large, small, arable, market gardens, livestock, a little bit of both, a little bit of everything. We've got folks small like us with 3.5 hectares. We've got other folks in the room with 3, 4, 5, 600 hectares. All of us coming together on this single umbrella because we see the road to regeneration. I am very proud that of our organization, the only farming organization that I know of its kind, wait, there is none other of our kind, but half of our members are women, something I'm very proud of, and you don't often see it in the ag space. So, great. Most of our members are also families. Many of us are first generation, or we're that generation after the generation that left home, right? So our grandparents had the farm. Many of us have inherited our grandparents' farms. Some of us, like us, had to buy from scratch. But what it means is that we are the ones who are out there dedicated to that learning, to working with the environment, to ensuring that we are creating an economy based on photosynthesis, on making sure that we are taking the power of the sun and converting that into energy, which is then food, it is then market economies, it is then social engagement, it is strong, resilient, diverse rural communities. So this is where we are looking, where we are, setting the pace for what Europe can and must become. So this is where we are. We didn't come here to listen to me. We came here to listen to them. So I would like to welcome our first round of EARA's Regenerating Farmers up onto the stage so that we can hear first from their voices. So I believe we can have Shila, please. Thank you. And who else is joining on the first round? Yes. Great, guys. Perfect. So we're going to go one by one. Everybody's going to share a bit of their journey, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Kick her off.
Hello. Does this work? Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Shila Darmos. I'm based in South Peloponnese, in Laconia, in a region very remote and rural and abandoned and agricultural. I took over the family farm that was already in my grandfather's hands and in my father's hands. You also see it on the pictures. This farm is about 2 hectares, but in total we manage about 5-6 hectares, and we grow mostly olives and citrus, and now also pomegranates and mulberries and figs and a lot of other things. And yeah, so my journey with farming started about 13 years ago. Yeah, and about 9 years ago, we transitioned the farm to a very diverse agroforestry system and started learning about regenerative practices. Yeah, so basically our farm increased a lot of biodiversity. We added a lot of other tree species, a lot of support species, because yeah, we just realized we need to improve our soil. Interestingly enough, the farm was one of the first organic farms in Greece. My father was a pioneer back then. But after 35 years of organic practices and really good practices, I I felt it was not enough. The soil was not like in a forest, and I'm like, no, that could be better. So yeah, I started my journey to learn from many other pioneers in Europe, just like my fellow farmers. And it also really connects to a challenge that I would like to highlight, which is that in rural Europe, especially in the rural south, there is not really an innovation supporting environment, especially not around farmers. It's rather much more the opposite. When I did the transition, I was very much alone in this. And yeah, the whole environment is just inducing fear to you and is telling you, oh, you cannot deviate from the known path. You have to do this, and you have to use chemicals. And even agronomists, they will tell you to use chemicals, although they know you're organic certified, and they tell you, oh, don't worry, nobody will find out. So imagine you're a young person, maybe not having an agronomic background like me, I didn't have, and everybody's inducing fear to you and pushing you towards, oh, come on, it's not a big deal, and pushing you towards using these products. So yeah, you really have to go out there and find your own solutions, dare to do something very much contrary to what the experts tell you to do. And this also led us to, on the journey to support other farmers, because we figured, imagine there are so many other farmers out there who also want to manage their land in a better way, but there is no supporting ecosystem. And that's also why we started the Southern Lights nonprofit organization, and why 2 years later we started the program Regenerative Farming Greece, because we understood we need to create a supporting environment for farmers to learn from each other, to dare to ask the difficult questions and to find a different path, and to amplify the voice and really help them to find the solutions that they need. And that's basically what we do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zoltan Lengyel. I'm from Hungary and the eastern part of that. We live in a very flat and flood-prone area. So my father and my grandfather were arable farmers. That model didn't sit right with me, so I went away for a good 15 years and became a programmer. And then went home and took over the family farm and basically turned it into a pasture. I don't think this land wants to be plowed, and the animals can handle the wet and the movement way better than the plants. So we turned it into a pasture in 2013. We started out. That back then it was only me and my 13 laying hens and 100 fattening chickens, and people started to pick up on us, and we started a CSA, and it grew. So now we are doing around 200 hectares, around the 200 head of cattle, and then a few hundred pigs and a couple thousand fattening birds. Here we also grow fruits and nuts and such, and we just started with our very small market garden. So we do everything. Our farm is also a learning site. We are the Hungarian Savory Hub, so it's I call it a holistically managed permaculture farm. And we have family days for the CSA members, and also we have open days for the public, and then we do all sorts of field walks and trainings and such for fellow farmers there. We direct sell all of our produce, so we slaughter and process everything ourselves, and then we deliver it for the people who are in contract with us. The big challenge I see, we do the trainings and people want to join the movement, but some of them are not really good at marketing and sales. So then there is not a price bump for regenerative meat. So they basically do all these extra efforts to to do the ethical thing, but there is no financial reward for that. So we just founded a co-op, and we try to build a brand for regenerative meat. It's called Ethical Meat, and then we use the permaculture ethics as a guidance. And for the land care, we also use Savory's ecological outcome verification. So they have to be verified regenerative land bases to join us. And with the training, we joined a bunch of organizations. EARA is being one, but I'm also the vice president for the Hungarian Agroecology Network, and then there is the Savory Hub. So we do all sorts of stuff like that.
Hello, I'm Miha Curk. I'm from Slovenia with my wife Clara and our 3 kids and 4th on the way. We are managing Zeleni Pašnik farm in southeast Slovenia. As you can see, it's a diverse landscape with mixed forest and pasture land. And it's still in high demand in our area because there's a couple farmers in the area who just want to take everything. But this was actually my grandfather's farm, similar to what Megan said in the beginning. We were able to move there because we didn't have a place to stay in Ljubljana, where we both grew up. And so we moved to the countryside, and there we had a new house, the first baby. And we weren't really interested in farming because, you know, farming is tough work and no future and all of that. But then, and Clara even said to me, don't expect for me to have a garden, you know, even a garden. But then in a year's time, we discovered regenerative agriculture, and we were thinking with the baby and so on, we should really, and we liked spending time outdoors, so we really wanted to go into the direction of more healthy living and growing our own food anyway. So we started a homestead, and what was started as a homestead on 5 hectares is now like quite a profitable little farm. I also work as a teaching assistant at the university, so it's Clara's main occupation. But we do all sorts of things because we know integration on small land is crucial. You can't just do one thing. We don't want to do really intensive stuff with lots of external inputs. So we are focused on grazing. You can see the sheep here and the chickens, but we also do rabbits, geese, ducks, and so on to really diversify things up. We have some silvopasture systems with walnuts and also the berry plantations to enhance the ecosystem functions. And with the limited land that we have, actually the 5 hectares that we own is just a part of the farm, but I only consider this as my farm because the couple hectares of forest that we have, as in many countries in Europe, is not allowed to graze out there. So I could expand the farm with good practices. I understand the historical reasons for banning grazing in forests, but with the practices that we know of now, I think that would be a good place to expand the farm. Apart from farming, we actually do also, we have an association of Slovenian regenerative farmers that I'm the president of as well. And we also do lots of, as you can see in the pictures, farm tours and educational workshops for other people to see that small-scale farming is not only something that can be done, but something that is essential for a resilient future. Yeah.
Right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Felix. I'm from northern Germany. I grew up and take over now the dairy farm of my ancestors. I'm going to be the 5th generation. It's been specialized since quite a while now. And we focus now on holistic grazing with the animals, but also agroforestry systems to bring in resilience for our pastures and our arable land. Furthermore, my parents started a direct sales system in 2006 where they built their own creamery. We process our milk into different products, sell them locally. And that's why I think the farm has an economic resilience to do all these different ecosystem work that we're bringing forward at the moment. You see in the middle a picture which was taken 2018. We suffered a very dry year. It's been from April to October, no single drop of rain. And when I came back on October, I saw that the grass went green first next to the trees instead of in the middle of the fields. So agroforestry is kind of the thing that I'm looking forward to implement more and more. And we have barriers there where for people that are in charge of setting up the subsidized system, I was talking about the trees to them, integrating a new crop on pasture. So in the subsidized system, you either have arable land or pastures. And I was saying, so instead of cultivating the tree lines all the time to keep the soil bare, not having any weeds next to the trees, I want to put pumpkins. So with the big leaves, they cover the soil, they regenerate the soil, and they shelter the trees from having weeds next to them. The person said, well, pumpkin is an arable crop. We are on pasture here, so not doable. If you want to get money for that, subsidize for that piece of land. So in the end, I got there, well, this is getting too complicated, and I rather cultivate it and take the money for the land instead of putting the pumpkins. And I did this in a tiny little section of the new agroforestry system because in the end I said, well, it's much easier to actually plant the pumpkin and wait for them to come, not to charge. But there is not too many people like me that would do the same. And integrating complexity to people that don't understand why we face the situation that many people rather not do it for getting the subsidies. This is about it for me.
So hi, I'm the Géraud Dumont, the local today. The farm is 40 kilometers southeast of Brussels. So it's a family farm too, and we produce more grain. You eat a lot of meat before, but if you need some bread, some beers, we are here too. And so I'm the third generation of the farm. I work with still my father and my two brothers, one of my sister-in-law. I hope the second in a few years. We'll see. My father started this journey. He stopped to plow more than 30 years ago. And we moved step by step in this movement. And so the risk was not huge because it was very slow, but we are still moving forward. And I think that is regeneration. We are still moving. And so you can see the diversity of the cover crops, the soil health that you can see on the roots, because we have more fungi, more bacteria. Because we reduce tillage, we reduce chemicals. We're not chemicals free. We are still using them, but as less as we can. And I hope in the future that we can stop. But what is the big issue in our area is the erosion and the soil. You can see on the bottom when you have cover crops and plowed ground. And I think this kind of farming is really important to manage the land and the community where we lived. And for me, a big barrier that I see is the people don't want to take a risk. And I think you have to take this chance to move and do trials. And for that, I think we now have enough farmers that failed before. So we learn and we can exchange. And I think that now we have enough, an ecosystem with a lot of organization that can help farmers. And in Belgium we have Regenerative, Regenerative, Solvivant and others. And I think that now it's more easy to do this move and to try another way of farming.
Pretty impressive group, huh? It's just a few of us. There's a lot more of us too. So, this is your turn. This is the moment that you can have any of your burning questions answered. You don't understand the relationship with soil health. How is it that we can really start easing out chemicals? What does biodiversity really mean in practice? Is this economically viable? Wait, aren't we all going to starve if we transition to regenerative agriculture? Any of these questions that you have, please. And remember, we're recording this and we're going to post it on YouTube. This is for posterity. So let's get those questions out. Ooh, I have one in my pocket, thanks to technology, from the Slido that I can fall back on if nobody wants to jump in first. But please, I don't know if we've got a roaming mic. Do we have a roaming mic? Great. We got this guy first, and then we'll get you. So there you go. There's one, and then we have another here. Wow. So please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, the icebreaker. All right, so my name is Stoyan. I'm a farmer from Bulgaria. And I see you don't have a red dot over there. So you're not going to come to Bulgaria to spread your knowledge. Yet. Yes, sorry. But actually, let's say, I'm also a member of the European Economic and Social Committee representing Bulgarian farmers. And we're going to start an opinion about the regenerative agriculture. That's the reason why I'm here. So thank you, dear colleagues. It's very interesting, your presentation. But I have one question for all of you because I'm a farmer and I know how difficult it is to meet, to pay the invoices by the end of the month. So how you manage to do that? Because it's impressive, it's great, it's gorgeous, pictures, etc. But by the end of the month, you have to pay the diesel. Or, all right, the electricity, probably you're using the solar panels, but still, schools, kids, everything. So that's the question to you. Is it profitable enough so you can keep going, or is it just a project? This is going to be a very valid question when we are doing the presentation in Bulgaria. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to go for it?
So for making it very short for me is raising the question, are we able to not do it? And if, how long is it going to take for weather extremes to becoming as bad as non-regenerated land can still grow crops? The second thing is, like our farm at the moment is at the phase where we just started investing in these new agroecology systems. And this is a hard phase, but once that's set up, I guess it's much more profitable than whatever my neighbors do. And during this time, we already reduce all the external inputs by not selling too much less than the others. This is what I think the beauty of regeneration is. Cutting the costs, keeping the sales high.
But for me, it's the same. We move step by step. So we were able to reduce the input. So we start by reduction about 10% nitrogen, but 15, 20, You know, we use 30 as 50 less than the average of the area, and to produce still the same amount, we still have the same productivity, and we have increased this productivity because we use less input, and we are more resilient. And if we see the last 5 years, we have 2 droughts, 3 wet years. That was worse than before, and we have more stabilized yield with less cost, so less risk. So I don't know why I will say that I will not going to start this way of farming, because I think for me, and we see the conventional farming, if you take the vegetables industry, they have a reduction in yield in the last 10 years of 20% with higher costs. And so for me, it's not the solution, it's one of the solution, and we have to take the good stuff of it. And yeah, but for me, we are still free on the farm, and we are still working on the farm and living off the farm. And I think if the farm will be not profitable, we will all have a part-time job and just keeping the farm. But it's not the case.
My answer is somewhat shorter. Yes. Yes, the drought, what was it, 3 years ago? I didn't sell any of my stock. In fact, I doubled my herd because we were the only place that grew grass still, because we put back the resiliency that was taken away, but with plowing and chemicals and all that. So maybe the best years will be not as high, but the low years will be much more high than for the others. And of course, you have to take a sensible path to transform your. It's probably not throw away everything, sell your equipment and do it, but field by field with a good plan, I think it's very much so.
One of our 4 principles of regenerative agriculture as EARA is context-based. So, as we say in Spanish, cada granja es un mundo. Every farm has its own context, it has its own history. Even the farm that's next to ours has had a completely different management history for the past 30 years. So it looks the same, it feels the same, but it is absolutely not the same. And so what needs to be done on our land to regenerate is different what needs to be done on his land to regenerate. So it's going to have different experience, different costs, different knowledge, different practices that are put into place, but it's all coming from the same place, the same mindset, the same direction. Also within regenerative agriculture, again, coming back to the profit question, it's all about understanding. I think that's what Zoltan was talking about earlier. What does this land want to be? So rather than trying to force the land under a yoke to produce what we're being told to by a policy or a market or a buyer, trying to understand what that land is best apt to be so that you're working with nature. When we try to dominate nature, when we try to simplify it, when we try to break it down, that's when we're fighting with it. And it costs more for the inputs. It costs more with the tractors. It costs more. But if we're working with it, that's when the costs come down, the productivity goes up, and the resilience comes in. So, good. We have sorry, Jazz. Yes, but you were writing down very furiously. Oh, this is so sweet. I didn't pay her to say that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I will stand. Hello, my name is Annalisa Winther. I am one of the co-founders of Top 50 Farmers, along with Cindy. You want to raise your hand? Hi, Cindy. So our purpose of being here is that we are focused on telling the stories of farmers to raise the awareness of the consumer, the general population, and as we've heard so many testimonies so far, the power of the story, meaning how did you get to where you are in that context? And how can that inspire others? Because we know that we need these stories of profitability to actually believe that we can do it and it's possible and it's not a myth. And when I was listening to you all, what really struck me is your leadership. Thank you so much for all that you're doing, not just on the farm, but also in the context of the local area. And Sheila, I heard you saying, it's not quite a hospitable environment. Like, the people around me aren't quite supportive. Whereas Zoltan, your community sought you out and was like, hey, can we buy from you? I hear you've got some chickens. Like, I'd like to buy this. So I'm wondering for each of you how you're navigating the context of building up your consumer base, or how you're looking at your channels. And really, when we look at building the context and the environment of what you need to succeed, to innovate, to take risks, to encourage it, to have others follow in that fold, what do you see as the biggest needs in your local regions, in your local areas right now?
My journey was a bit of a special one because we have a pretty good association pushing CSA community-supported agriculture in Hungary. So my job was pretty easy because I went all of the meetings of the market garden CSAs and presented my case for ethical meat, and the same consumer base just joined us as well. And then after that, it was basically social media, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, so my case is a bit different. Actually, my father, when he started the journey to organic farming, he also realized that there's a very big need to create a market for such products. So he built up this small-scale production facility where he would buy the products of the organic farmers that he helped to transition, because they were like, yeah, fine, we're going to transition, but who will buy this thing that's called organic? There was not even a certification back then in Greece. So yeah, we have been building up since 35 years a consumer base, and especially we work with specific distributors who really put a lot of care into telling the story of the farmer. They come and visit us every year, and we go all together and visit also the farmers. So they are really also trusted by their consumers, and we really have the possibility to share the challenges that we have this year. And why is the olive this year smaller and more black, instead of just being pushed out of the market by big supermarkets saying, no, that doesn't fulfill the criteria. So I think we really need to make a very big effort to allow these communication channels to exist, because I think consumers want to be a part of supporting farmers and also creating a resilient supply chain in a way. And it's really touching, but consumers really care. Like, if they understand and you explain to them what are your challenges, they will not mind anymore that the lime is actually yellow when it ripens, which before they didn't know, and we can literally not sell it if consumers don't know it, because they're like, why is it yellow? Do they want to fool me? Yeah, we really need to be able to communicate our realities from the farms to the consumers. And it's also an invitation to all the food businesses out there, really speak with the farmers and the consumers and try to find solutions together. I see from experience it's easier than we think if we just come together and speak about it. Yeah.
I'm also curious from the context that in Slovenia, you built the Slovenia Regeneration Association. In Greece, you've also built an association that's focused on building community to expand to these markets, but also for that community, like a DJ. I love it. I'm curious from that point of view too, because I hear that it's not just on farm leadership, it is community leadership and gathering different stakeholders. I'm not sure if all of you have engaged in such practices, but that feels like a core element as well in terms of really supporting the market creation.
In Slovenia, for example, the association is not meant to be a promotional association to increase buying or consumption, but more like a knowledge sharing platform. So the farms in Slovenia that are generating are actually quite small, more similar to ours, like 5-10 hectares. The customers really seek out your story. And we have a social media presence, and then the people come to us in big numbers. Actually, we can't produce enough for everybody to be able to buy. So there's huge potential in Slovenia for small farms like ours that can be diversified, and people are really looking at buying food that is naturally grown, that is they want to be connected to nature. So yeah, I hope that answers.
They're all coming in online now. It's really exciting, but you've been very patient. Could you ask your question,
Yes,
please?
my name is Mark Fredericks. I'm a short food supply chain entrepreneur in the Netherlands. And I'm building a network, a European network of short food supply chain advisors and initiatives. They will connect in a lot of opportunities with you guys, having so much beautiful and good and healthy food. So regenerate our soils, but also regenerate the herd of people, I say. How within short food supply chain we really struggle with selling the added value of a farmer because we lack proof. We are not able to sell our values to our government, so they just come up with these subsidy schemes that do not fit for purpose. How do you as a collective, as a network, work on data? And especially you have a background as a programmer, so I'm really keen on how you think on that one.
So we are doing the EOV verifications in Hungary, which is ecological outcome verification, and it's a science-based methodology from the Savory Institute. So we can soon put the stamps on the products, and then we can communicate it what it is. Like we have, the water is muddy right now because there is no certification that is well known, so we cannot use that. But we started doing EOV, so soon it will come.
Maybe I can just very quickly add. From my experience, it's not data that consumers want, because many consumers know that data, you can say it like this and then it sounds good. But what we saw is that actually they want transparency. And if you say you can come to my farm whenever you like, it gives them a lot of trust. And from my experience, I see that this is what people lack nowadays. They lack trust in the brands, in the food, in the supermarkets. And if you put, again, people behind a brand or behind a farm, like relatable people, this is a real human. It's not an anonymous company. This is what consumers need. They need to know they can go to the farm and it's a real thing. There's nothing hidden. We have transparency. You can come whenever to my farm.
I can maybe say that on data also in a second. You will, if you have some more patient, if you saw the agenda later, we will show you how we're taking data on all of these farms over Europe in a harmonizing and synergizing way.
Thank you. And thank you again, everyone online, for sending in these great questions, and well, maybe not just online, but through the Slido. I'm going to ask one of these. Would you feel the lack of access to independent advisory services with expertise on IPM, regenerative, and agroecology practices as one of the key bottlenecks? Who wants to hit that one?
I think it could be. We don't have a lot of agronomists that can think about this holistic management and to see all the farm. We are more specific to one crop or one breed. But I think that now you have enough farmer in this journey and I think they are the best advisors, and to exchange and to do a field tour and to visit farms. And I think it's the more valuable things that you can do. And yeah, that's my point.
Well, as a trainer of farmers, I can tell you, there's a lot more of us out there than you think. There are a lot of advisors who are already working with farms, who have 5, 10, 15 years of experience on the practical side of things, helping to transition. I think just we're still so few. Like if you look at us, maybe we're 10 or 50 or 100 in a country, but if you think that there's thousands of advisors, we seem so very few. But the great thing is that we're growing. We have these networks like the Savory Institute, like the hubs, but also there are a lot of great associations. We're going to hear from some of them later today. So the information is out there, and I think that's one of the biggest things is, it's not just YouTubers. There's a lot of great stuff on YouTube. We've got some YouTubers in the room. There's a lot of great information that's already out there, but what I've found with my students is that it's that emotional support almost more than that technical support, because you may know it theoretically, you may know what you're looking at on the ground, but taking that next step. One of my students, he told me that it physically hurts him in his stomach when he thinks about having to leave so much hay behind on the ground. But actually what he's doing is he's feeding the microbiology in his soil. And he understands that, he knows that, but it hurts. And I just, it's okay. Just go ahead, move the cows, and trust me, and come back in a month, and he's got twice as much. It's really, you have to see it to believe it. Oh, we have a question waiting. Great.
Thank you. Hello. Can
Yes.
you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the question. My name is Natasha. I work as an agri-food journalist here in Brussels, so I'm focused on all things EU agri-food policy. I have lots of different questions. I'm going to start with one, just because, so I'm fairly familiar with Regen Ag, as Shila knows, but here in Brussels, there's, let's say, a growing interest, quite a lot of interest, but I think also quite a lot of concerns and a bit of wariness about regenerative agriculture. And I just wanted to pick up on this point about trust. And I think one of the things I hear a lot in Brussels is that it's currently very poorly defined, or that there's a very broad definition of regenerative agriculture. There's a lot of big companies jumping on this too, big agro companies. I've personally sampled lots of Regen Ag branded Nestle, various different companies saying that it's regenerative. And when you ask about why it's regenerative, they don't have very substantial answers, shall we say. So I guess I wanted to come back to that question of trust, how important this element of definition is in building this trust, and maybe jumping on the certification point as well that came up a few times. I mean, I guess we'll dig into it further later, but kind of how much this is needed, and I just wanted to kind of push on that point, maybe. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very context dependent, but from country to country. In Slovenia, for example, as I said, we don't need a certification because the people can come to the farm and they can, see for themselves, at least at this point. Yeah, that's from my point of view. But if someone wants to add for other countries.
I guess trust is something very profound that we need in society, not just in farming or in our agri-food system, but also like we live in this context where numbers are key to everything in the world, where we not yet understand complexity as we need to look through nature through a different lens. So right now here we have numbers of farms that actually prove regeneration, but it should be more pictures, mindset, feelings when you come visit us on the farm, where we can actually show you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's key. When you come to one of our farms, you feel it, you hear it, you smell it. It smells clean. You hear the insects. In my place, you hear the water infiltrating. You feel it, but how do you put that onto a label? How do you feed a food system when not everybody can come to our farms? So that's work that we as EARA are doing. As I mentioned before, we have our 4 principles of regenerative agriculture, which are available on our website, eara.farm. And my colleague V, who is around here somewhere, she is doing an excellent job benchmarking more than 100 regenerative agriculture certifications, as well as different companies' roadmaps and claims in regenerative agriculture to line that up with what we believe to be regenerative agriculture, so that we can show how they may be able to increase their learnings and really start moving more towards regeneration. I see your hand in the question. We only have a couple more minutes in this round, and I want to give one last chance for a question from the Slido from online, but then there's going to be plenty of time to come and jump on our farmers during the coffee break. So good. One last question. Why regenerative agriculture rather than agroecology? What led you towards the one rather than the other? Or do you consider both terms to be equivalent? Quickly.
Hello, everybody. I will be in the second round, but very briefly, the point is that regenerative agriculture express the goals you want to reach to regenerate ecosystems through regenerating the soils. Okay, agroecology is the tools you will use according on ecologic ecosystemic rules for getting the regeneration. Are two terms that express two different things. It's not one or the other. Agroecology are the practices for getting the regeneration. Thank you.
That was perfect. Thank you so much for jumping the queue and answering that. I think it was great. Let's give a big round of applause to our farmers. Thank you so much. Don't worry, we will have another session with our farmers. But first, we're going to dig into some really interesting topics. This first one, food as medicine. Who is familiar with the term of food as medicine? Nice, I love this room. I'm gonna invite Susanna to come on up here. Susanna, thank you. You've got 15 minutes. Here's your clicker. Okay. Where you'll get signs in the back. Okay.
Hi everyone, it's super nice that we are having a farming conference and we can also talk about health, which is quite rare so far, so we are pioneering in this room. My name is Susanna and I'm environmental nutritionist, which is a bit of a funny profession where I work in between the soil health and human health. And I was given a very difficult task to try to bring this topic in 15 minutes. It's a bit hard to accomplish, but I will do my best. So I'm probably going to skip some of the slides. Okay, so I'm representing two organizations today. On one side, we have Regenerative Healthcare European Association, REA, which is totally inspired by EARA with the name. And our non-profit, which is registered in Portugal, works on promoting nutrient density and accumulating research that is already out there and trying to bring the concept of regenerative healthcare in the European transition. So, for example, if you are looking for any data points about nutrient density, you can go out on our website and we have lots of information up to date. And the second organization that I work with, or I founded, is Harvest Care, which is an organization based in Rotterdam, where we work on implementing food pharmacy, which is a specific model working with chronically ill patients, where we procure food from organic farmers, and we're trying, hopefully, to prove that food can be procured as medicine, just as a normal pharmaceutical medicine. So, few of the problems that we are addressing or that are happening right now in Europe. So sadly, most of us in this room will die from chronic diseases. Apparently, according to WHO, it's more than 90% of us will die from diet and lifestyle-related diseases, which is quite worrisome information, I think. And we are spending a lot of money on this problem. This is data from 2016, but between 70 to 80% of all of the healthcare costs were put aside for the management of chronic diseases. So it's huge money that are right now being kind of spent of just trying to make people die in a less painful way that could potentially be put for the pockets of farmers which can prevent these diseases. We're losing lots of money in general. There was a very interesting report last year that showed that hidden costs of food system are somewhere around $15 trillion per year, and $11 trillion of this is in the healthcare. So huge. We are talking of huge amounts. And it's no wonder, since only around 12% of Europeans consume their daily recommended portion of fruits and vegetables, which is only 5 portions, so it's not really that much. And in general, in EU, we are spending around 6% of the healthcare budget on prevention. In my country where I'm from, Poland is only 2%, in Belgium is 3%, so you can see that this proportion between 90% of us will die in something that's preventable, but we're only spending 3% on preventing it. I have a slide about soil challenges, but I don't think I need to tell at all this group about any of the soil challenges, so because of the time I will skip it. And I do want to mention the topic that probably is well familiar for you, which is the nutrient density decline. There's quite consistently studies showing over and over that because of the conventional farming practices like nitrogen overuse, heavy tillage, nitrogen fertilization, and the focus on selecting our crops to yield more rather than more in quantity rather than more in quality, our crops are becoming less and less nutritious. Right now, one terminology that I would like you to be familiar with is called hidden hunger. I don't know if you know it. Can you raise your hand? We have few people in the room, but it's very good. Hidden hunger happens when we have sufficient amount of calories, or maybe even more calories than we need. However, our calories are empty in the nutritional value. We don't know really what is the size of the problem of hidden hunger right now in Europe, but there is actually a consortium working between 2024 to 2027 on trying to get those data. So hopefully we'll be more aware what's the problem, what's the size of the problem. There's, I would love to come here and say, okay, our carrots are 3 times less nutritious, but of course it's very hard to harmonize such a data, and it's impossible. There is one study done in Texas, in US, which was looking at 13 different crops for almost 50 years, and they observed different decrease of losing different nutrients, but the nutrient decrease varied between 6 to almost 40%. But still, it all depends on what was the data points that we're collecting. One also important element that I want to mention here is that unfortunately also our crops are becoming less protein containing, because we have too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is processing more carbs rather than proteins, which is not such a big problem in Europe specifically, but for example in sub-Saharan area where people are relying on the grains as the main protein source, that will become quite of a challenge. Really good quote, I think. People are fed by the food industry, which pays no attention to health, and are treated by the health industry, which pays no attention to food. And hopefully we're going to challenge it in the upcoming CAP. So I strongly believe that we should have a farming and healthcare practices and focus on the health, which is at its core. So within every part of the supply chain of food, from farming practices, which are focused on creating nutrient-dense produce, all the way to produce that we consume, everything should be focused on putting maximum nutrition in the soil and in our bodies. Very simple, soil health equals plant health equals human health. The question, that will come later, another important part to mention is that there's so much money going in innovation nutrition. We are trying to optimize, personalized nutrition, more supplementation. I think the real innovation in the nutrition world is making sure that we are growing nutrient-dense crops, and we are knowing how to consume them, that they remain still nutritious. So a question that we get asked a lot is, does organic / ecological / regenerative actually produce more nutrients into our food? And it's a bit of a tricky question because I know it's a huge slide, so sorry about it. Maybe you can just take a picture. But it's a screenshot from, or a summary from one of my favorite studies called Soil Health and Nutrient Density Beyond Organic versus Conventional by David Montgomery and Nana Biko, which I'm sure that a lot of you know. What basically they point out is that the confusion comes because of different definition of what is nutrient. When we perceive nutrient as just macronutrient, which is helping us to survive, there's no really evidence that shows that organic produce grow more nutrients in terms of proteins or carbs. But if we dig deeper, there is quite sufficient data showing that indeed organic food and food that is just produced in a way that enhances soil life leads to higher health-promoting molecules like phytochemicals, which are not necessarily needed for survival, but are needed for protecting us from chronic diseases. So the confusion here is a bit on the understanding of what are we talking about exactly. Few examples of what's happening in this world of nutrient density. Again, study from the same authors, Montgomery and Beagle. They went to US, tried to look at different farms which are growing conventional, regenerative for 5 years or regenerative for 10 years. They measure soil and they measure nutrient density of, I think, around 10 crops. And what they found is that beside vitamin B1, B3, B6, and C, all the rest results were consistently showing higher nutritional quality on the regenerative farms. So, we had more vitamins, more phytochemicals, more minerals. Very similar case with wheat. What's interesting that when farmers were including cover crops that did not really suppress that didn't decrease their yields, but at the same time, it did provide higher nutrient density of their wheat. Fatty acid distribution, probably people that are with holistic grazing here are very well aware of this. When we are applying holistic grazing and other regenerative practices where the livestock is grass-fed and grass-finished, so that means that all of its life, it remains on the grass, we are having a much better ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, which is a really big problem nowadays because we are eating so much processed food, which is really high in refined oils, vegetable oils, which are really high in omega-6, that are leading to inflammation. Probably most of you saw this on your LinkedIn because it was all over LinkedIn with our friends from US, from Bionutrient Food Associations, real pioneers in this world. For a couple of years, they are researching the connection between, the nutrient variation, meaning that they are taking thousands of samples to their labs in US and looking what is the variation of a different crop. So for example, in this variation, if you look at the blueberry, if you eat a conventional or blueberry grown in poor soils, you would need to eat 8 blueberries. You would need to eat 8 blueberries from conventional versus 1 blueberry from regenerative farm, right? Which makes a huge difference because me as a woman this height, I can only have around 2,000 calories. So there is a limited calories that I can consume per day. Final thing, they try to correlate. What is the correlation? So you cannot really see it, but what is the real correlation between nutrient variation? Is it the seeds or is it the climatic region? Is it the practices? They found that the only correlation between nutrient density is the soil life. That's why we need to redefine, from classic definition on nutrition and nutrient density as just looking at the calories into this holistic perspective where any health professional, any farmer, we are all putting health of the soil and humans at the main focus. Just wanted to give you an example of my colleague that unfortunately could not be here today. They are running actually nutrient density research in Portugal on olives and almonds. They are trying to test different solutions for the industry, and they're also comparing the nutritional quality. Food is medicine. 2 words about the research we are doing in Netherlands right now. It's happening right now. It's a randomized controlled trial, started 1 month ago, where we took 20 patients, because that's how much you could fundraise. It's also a challenge to fundraise for food-related focus project, right? I don't have any pharmaceutical company supporting me behind, but still, I did manage to get some money where we can buy from short supply chain some organic food for diabetes type 2 patients. We are giving them this food with recipes every week. We have coaching, we have workshops with them, and we are going to try to figure out, is this working better than just giving them insulin and say, well, sorry, you need to have diabetes. One thing I would like to invite you, because we were very lucky to get some funding from this European Innovation Partnership. I just learned about it last month. And we are going to lead an agri-health outcome payment model, which is basically we are going to do more food pharmacies, and then we are trying to figure out, okay, how much money with the food pharmacy are we saving for the healthcare system? Can we make a government, a municipality, a healthcare insurer actually pay for it? And what's really cool is that we see it already happening in different countries, just not on the food focus. So what we are trying to do really, how can we pull the money from the healthcare to the farmer pocket? I think it would be extremely, it would be extremely difficult, but we will try, and we want to share all of the learnings. So we'll have like peer-to-peer and webinars, and we want other people to do their own food-focused pharmacies. So just go on this website and you can sign up for, we'll start in April. So if you need any data around soil, microbiome, human microbiome, or nutrient density, just send me an email. I wanted to put you all the resources that you can find, but maybe if you look for something specific, you have a market garden and you want to say, hey, we'll do cover crops, is this leading to higher nutrient density? Can we report something for our customers? Just send me an email, and then I can try to pull you the data that can help you with the marketing to your consumer from the nutrition perspective. Okay, I'm done.
Oh my God, 15 minutes. Susanna, before you get off the stage, there may be people with questions. Do we have any questions about food pharmacies, food as agriculture? Let's get a new voice in the room. Fabio. Any?
Yes, thank you, Susanna. My name is Fabio, also part of the EARA team. And I was wondering, maybe like you said also before, what would you need from us? Like, what is the call to action from your side towards us? Because you said we can support you with the food pharmacies, but what do you need from policy, from us as NGO and industry partners, farmers?
Well, I think this is yeah. I think right now the healthcare and the farming are always bridged as 2 separate sides. So I think just having this discussion today, that's already like a huge step, right? And I think for farmers that are producing such a nutrient-rich produce, like communicating it from the healthcare perspective and also trying to get in contact with their local healthcare providers. I know you are super busy and you don't have time, but there are some people that are trying to connect you. But like right now we're working with the farmer, and we have a soil researcher and a local GP, and like seeing the local GP talking to the soil ecologist and finding so many shared topics, I think it's super empowering. So if you're ever thinking, where can I diversify my income stream? I would definitely say, like, try to go and talk to your local GP, because maybe, I mean, I'm seeing more and more GPs that are also talking to us and saying, oh, sorry, are you also in this municipality? Because we would love to do such a project for our community. So I think really farmers and doctors in one tables.
Nice.
Just a quick thing. So where we are, we're 620 meters, south-facing, beautiful. We get 1,200 millimeters of rain a year. For those of you who don't know, that's a whole hell of a lot of water. people don't grow tomatoes where we are because you don't have the temperature, you don't have the sun, but we're up on a hill. And so we grow fabulous tomatoes. And the problem is that now our clients won't buy tomatoes during the rest of the year. They only buy tomatoes from us in season because of the color, because of the smell, because of the taste. It tastes like tomatoes. It doesn't taste like water. And we as humans, thankfully, still have that monkey brain bit of ours where we can taste nutrient density. We know what's good for us. Oh, we like a Kit Kat bar every now and then, but we know what's good for us. And I think that's the big difference. Once you start eating food that comes from these kinds of farms, it's really difficult to go back. So please, get out there, meet your local farmers, talk to them. And now we're going to talk to one more farmer, because Jose Luis wants to add something about food as medicine. I have a question.
I want to ask you one a word that I have. You put a huge message that only 12% of the European population eat all this amount of recommendation from fruit and vegetable, and you speak about the problem that we have about density production and about that. But there is a solution. Eat more meat and fish and eggs. And so I am made aware about seeing your PowerPoint presentation that if we focus our message that you have to increase the amount of fruits and vegetables, it's incredible the amount of pesticide that we are receiving as Europeans eating fruits. So I would like to share that maybe the solution is, okay, for sure, at home we eat salad quite every day, but if we change the focus from reducing the income from carbohydrate and increase the income from very high density regenerative product, eggs, meat, fish, and all that kind, it should be healthier, not put the focus only on vegetables.
Jose Luis, she's a vegetarian.
Cheese.
Yeah.
No, but no, but it's not her case. It's for a.
Yeah, of course we are talking about eating like regenerative organic fruits and vegetables, right? Now I'm not standing here and saying, eat more conventional, out of season, like, and yeah, I mean, I think the problem maybe is with also overconsumption of ultra-processed meat. So I think the switch from ultra-processed to regenerative, grass, I think that would be amazing. I think from the microbiome perspective, I would still say, yeah, get your fibers. And yeah, but I think what I really like also about the regenerative movement is that it's not a discussion vegan, vegetarian. No, it's not. It's just you can have a healthy diet with meat, without meat, with eggs, without meat. I'm pretty sure. But the main thing is, yeah, just do it ethically, seasonally, locally, supporting soil. No, that's the main focus. I think as long as we focus on soil, yeah, we should be good. But yeah, I think more regenerative meat on the table and less farmed meat, for sure. It's my claim, even though I'm vegetarian, So.
This one's not working. There we go. Yeah, you have a question.
Yeah. In my previous job, before I started, I know you, so I'm really a big fan of what you do. Starting with short food supply chains, I was inspired by, I was a publisher at a medical publishing company in the Netherlands. And you're facing a really big legal challenge here. So if you look at the legal framework of calling something a medicine, it's like a corrupt process by itself. Did you think about how we could hack that process in our advantage? Using short food supply chains that actually are an ideal environment to do A/B testing on food as a medicine, so the process. Did you look into that one?
Sorry. So I don't want to jinx it, but we are talking with people like Novo Nordisk, for example. And I think what we'll have to, I think the process that we'll have to do is to actually go for the pharmaceutical process that is designed for a medicine from a lab, get all the protocols, blah, and try to apply it on the vegetable. But it's also because, I'm not such a revolutionary like you that you could think, okay, can I go around the different routes and choose, make something else? So maybe we should talk about it after. words, but for now we are thinking, okay, we have randomized controlled trial of Erasmus MC. We collect hardcore data. We will try to get the Novo Nordisk on board, understanding what are the health economics of it, what is all the process, and really try to push through medically certifying this prescription foods, which maybe we'll fail, but we'll try at least.
Okay, let's do it together.
Yeah. Let's do it together.
Yay, partnerships, regeneration in practice, people. This is what we love. I would love to welcome Martin Kovac, who is going to talk to us about water for climate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. Good morning. I hope some presentation. Yeah, yes, it's here. This one. Oh, thank you. So, if there is a heat, we are going to water, and if there is a fire, we need a lot of water. So thank you for inviting us to this meeting and workshops. It's very important, and I would like to speak today about water and how important is water for the climate stability. And I think that there is a special role of regenerative agriculture in this process, and I will be very happy to spend these 3 days with you. Water. If we speak about water, it's life, but we know that water we need everywhere in all the processes. Water is interconnected by water cycles and interconnects climate by water cycles. And we have large water cycles where we have exchange of water between oceans and land. And we have small water cycles on the oceans or on the land. But the problem is that we do not monitor what is happening on the land with water. We have 4 components of small water cycles, you can see on the right top. That are land plots by different land use. There is a soil of different quality, and there are plants and rainwater, and all those 4 components we are heavily changing without assessing its impact to large water cycle, to global water cycle. But what is very important, I will speak later about small water cycle and its role for climate stability. There are 3 functions of land: production, utility, and ecosystem functions. We are very happy that our soils provide plants. We have different types of land use, utility use of the land functions, but we have ecosystem functions. And in our businesses, we do not pay for these ecosystem services, and we do not recover these ecosystem services and functions. And this is why we need to open this economy to support renewal of these ecosystem services and the global climate stability. Next one. Soil. Soil is really a carbon and water bank of landscape, not only from economical point of view, but from quantity and quality of the material. And it's a very special land, and soil is a very special layer where is distribution of solar energy and rainwater, and what is happening and on the landscape surface, and how we manage landscape and soil. We decide what hydrology there will be, we decide what type of climate there will be. So I think there is a good message that if we manage soil in a proper way, we can rehydrate the land and we can manage climate. That is very important, climate. If we speak about climate, we have a lot of problems with overheating on the global level. Europe probably twice much, but global water cycle stability drives stability of the climate. Those things are very much related. As you can see, there is an exchange of water between land and oceans, and there is very thin layer where on the land there is a soil with plants, and these plants together with water, they create biotic pump and regulation. But we are losing this biotic system of the regulation because we are losing the water from the system by drainage, by desertification and other processes. But what is positive process and positive message is that we can reverse this process. We can reverse this process, and regenerative agriculture plays key role in this process. we can quantify how much water we can return back. We can quantify which type of measures are important. And when I'm speaking about 2D, 3D, 4D, I'm speaking that we can plan weather, we can plan climate. And that is a completely new generation of thinking of what we have to do. And this is something that needs to be included in future common agricultural policy, to include it with water planning and climate planning. What is very important to say is that water interconnects key environments of the Earth climate system by water cycles. And this is why it's important to include water and soil in the next debates about solving problems with climate, and especially in update, some kind of update of Paris Protocol, because there is no single word, water or soil. So something was missing from the subject. We have types of the landscapes that are, after many years, really degraded, and water is going very quickly from the landscapes. We need to return back landscape structures. We need to increase this water retention capacity by systematic approach. And after then, available rainwater will provide number of services: groundwater recharge, green water recovery, ecological connectivity and biodiversity, and as well benefit production of biomass and increase of this production. These are some examples what is needed. These are erosion lines in forests in Slovakia. After regeneration, we stabilized this erosion line, and because if you don't stabilize these erosion lines, every next year are deeper, and it means deeper means more drying the landscapes. We need to stabilize them because we will keep water there, and this is beneficial for the forest. All forests are drying because they lose water. So this is why we need to work with water and anti-erosion measures in forest areas. They are usually just above agricultural land, so they are very important reservoir of the water for agricultural land as well, for groundwater resources. So it's very important to work both in forest areas and in agricultural land. This is an example of pasture in Slovakia, in which Torisa, they had typical problem on the autumn time with floods from one slope just above the village. But after adding this measure, water retention measure on the line, on the one elevation, the problem stopped, and finally it was very cheap solution, very efficient. They added later some trees, so now it's with some landscape, it's a part of landscape features, and it's very effective. So I think what we need to do, we need to remodel of our agricultural landscape, because our agricultural landscape is very weak. It doesn't have connections, doesn't have structures to manage proper well. And I think for the future, if we would like to manage climate, farmers have to take care of not only rainwater, but they have to produce water. This will be their new function, new role that they will be paid for, because they are working actively in the landscapes. We have a good example in Slovakia. We have debates about no-till farming. There is a lot of interest about this. And I think it's very good if there is a transformation from industrial till farming to no-till farming. And it will be very good if this will be, there will be some landscape features added to the landscapes. Because on one hand, we have huge fields, but we need to add places where water can stay. But both things are very important, adaptation measures and management measures. I will come to that later. This is an important example. If we are promoting now, this is my experience, and working for the Ministry of Agriculture for 2-3 years, if we have regenerative area, it's a problem for common agricultural policy. Too many colors, too many different issues, too many not regular borders. So we need to make a communication with European Commission. So Commission need to support this way of changing the landscape, because this way of changing the landscape will provide ecological stability, groundwater recharge, and it's a base for this regenerative agriculture approach. there is a much more administrative barriers than those who are doing industrial agriculture. So I think we have to think and we have to clearly communicate. We need to involve millions and millions of new landscape features and water retention structures, and it must be supported without bureaucracy. And what we have to do now is we have two good opportunities. We have opportunity to implement new nature-based solutions, different adaptation measures in our landscape structures, forest area, agricultural land, and urban areas. So we will be able to increase this water retention capacity by one-time activity measures. But what is very important is this areal approach, managing with soil from this areal perspective. This is management measures. So regenerative agriculture with agroforestry, no-till farming, and regenerative pasture is very important. And there are many other things connected with this management that can improve soil health. But what is a difference between them? Adaptation measures usually will start transformation to management, better management practice. So I think it's good to use them probably and to follow with these management changes. But what is behind both measures is both increase water retention capacity, not decrease. And that is a key message for climate makers and policy makers, because by working in the agricultural and open land, by a regenerative approach towards water and soil, we regenerate water cycles, we regenerate and heal climate. And I think it's very important that it will be recognized within European policy. There are three numbers, 90, 50, and 10. And I will be very happy to speak about these three numbers in next 2-3 days, because it's a little bit more words. But this is about how to make our landscapes more mosaic, how to make them more structured, how they can help us to decrease climate risks, flood risks, and drought risks. And I think we are really those who can, and we can help to that. This is just an example from Africa. Maybe you know, maybe you are looking for this, what is happening in Asia, Africa. But very popular now in Africa are half moons. What is this half moon? This is a kind of intervention. It is digging the hole in the really soil, which is very hardened, very, very solid. But what is happening after building these half moons is that after rain season, which is there maybe 2-3 months a year, much more water will be infiltrating, in these holes. So by doing these half moons, they really increase water retention capacity, and they help regeneration of the soil, they help groundwater recharge, and they help to the vegetation. And finally, by helping vegetation, they help the climate. World Food Program, Great Green Wall, just dig it. Several 10 million pieces of these half moons were built over the last few years. This will give you a number. If you would like to increase water retention capacity, first we have to slow down the annual decrease of this capacity. Because if we do business as usual, we decrease water retention capacity. I speak we, it means civilization. Urbanization, deforestation, soil health, which is decreasing with quality. It means there is all the time, every year, between 2 different years, at the same area, decrease of this capacity. But by regenerative approach, we will start to increase this capacity. And on the European Union, there is a plan, and we need to increase this capacity by 23 cubic kilometers by adaptation measures, interventions, and another around 42 cubic kilometers we will achieve by improving soil health. So 21, 42, finally 63, calculate by 4, we will return 8% of rainwater back to the groundwater recharge, to the cooling of the landscape. This is something what we can help to manage this risk. This is unbelievable opportunity for us to take part on this action. What is, how to manage all these problems that are now happening, cascading effects? What is very important, as I mentioned on the beginning, there are 3 things that are really interconnected. Water, soil, and by interconnection of water on the soil, there is a connection to climate. And there is a European soil strategy, I think it was approved autumn 2021. And this strategy is important because it's speaking about soil. And soil is important for all the strategy, not only in Europe, in the world, because everything is happening on the soil. You know, urbanization, agriculture, forestry. So somehow we are connected to the soil, to different land plots, different size. And it's almost impossible to solve 10, 20, 30 different strategies, you know, to save the world if we do not understand what to manage to decrease these risks. All these strategies and all these frameworks are interconnected by water cycle. So what is very simple way how we can start to do an effective approach to decreasing the risks and to improving the stability of the water cycle is to assess policy, public policy impacts to water cycles. It is probably positive, negative, or neutral. If it is negative, we have to improve these policies. That will be at least neutral or positive. What is said to say, common agricultural policy for now, as it is, has negative impact to water cycle. And we have to return it. So I am almost on the end. There are some 3 steps: monitoring of water cycles, preparing and implementation of the measures and financial system. And on the end, we have very clear strategy what to do, because this strategy was implemented already. And we have partners, not only in Europe, around the world, that validate this approach. We have to assess impact on water cycles. We need really landscaping and adaptation of existing agriculture, and especially Southern Europe, to decrease this risk of floods that we are experiencing. And we need to activate new economy model, which is behind. This model will bring more funds to rural areas and to agriculture than all common agricultural policy. We can debate it later. Water, soil, climate nexus is very important because this is direct relation. We are influencing it. We are increasing this instability, but positive message is that we can reverse this process. Finally, what we do, we promote together new water culture and new soil culture. So I think there is a key role of regenerative agriculture for update of common agricultural policy. Thank you for attention.
Thank you so much, and so sorry for rushing you. I think next time we're going to have to give you more time, because so many of these very important issues that we haven't had a chance to dive into because we're trying to be a bit, you know, high level. These are all really important debates. So thank you, and we'll, for those of you who are joining us during other events during the rest of the week, we'll have lots of time to talk to Martin. Thank you all so much. So now we are going to kick off to round 2 of Q&A time with our farmers. So I would like to welcome up to the stage our next round of farmers. So Marco, Jose, Luis, Sergi, Anne, come on up. Remember, we have the Slido active, so please feel free to use that. And then for those in the room, get your hands all warmed up and ready to ask those questions. We are going to kick off with Marco. Marco Carbonaro, would you please tell us about your journey?
So, very quickly. I am an ecologist. I studied ecology at university, and then I moved with my wife in Pulicaro Farm, that is in the center of Italy, close to Bolsena Lake. We started with 3 hectares, and now we manage 100 hectares, mostly on animals on pastures, because we think that is one of the most important tools for regenerating soils, especially at the beginning when the soil is poor and is in trouble. I have 3 wonderful children, Livia, Claudia, and Lucia. And 11 people work with us every day, because we have also a little guest house. We have the butcher shop into the farm. and we have a small market in Rome. So this is what we do. Just giving you a few numbers, we raise around 10 from 15,000 birds per year. 200 to 300 pigs are in the farm, 20 cows, and 150 to 200 in between sheep and goats, plus a lot of dogs, because we are into a natural reserve, and so we work with the livestock guardian dogs as a very needed tool for staying into the wild, let's say, without any problems, and being happy of the wild nature around us. Yes, we really see, as you can see from some image, the result of the regeneration into our soils, physically meter per meter. When we can keep the animals in the proper way for enough time, we see that the photosynthesis efficiency skyrocket. And for example, even the resilience of the ecosystem by itself increase. We don't need any kind of pesticides with or even sulfur and copper for the olive trees, because the presence of the birds and the manure of the animals keep them very healthy and interrupt the cycle of the pest that can be looking for the olives, for example. And the grass you can see in that stripe is exactly under the mobile chicken coop that we move up and down into the olives. And that grass resists, speaking of water, resists usually 30 to 40 days longer in the summer. So instead of being yellow in our climate in the beginning of half June, can stand till half July or end of July. And during the winter, he can literally meter per meter get frost 3-4 Celsius degrees later. Instead of being frost at minus 0.5, get frost at -4. You can imagine how many days of grass I have compared to the other situation. There are some challenges that we have to face, and one of the most important is that not everyone, but a lot of people like regenerative agriculture. Some people knows that animals on pasture are a very efficient tool, but when we speak about laws and regulations, especially in Europe, we forgot that we have to allow these animals on pasture and not thinking that the only global health solution is keeping them into a concrete box. So this is something we are, let's say, working on. And yes, honestly, this is mostly what I would like to tell you in this frame.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
So my name is Anne van Leeuwen. I'm farming in the Netherlands, Gagel Farm, for a good Dutch pronunciation, in the east of the Netherlands, Lochem. And I had the extreme luck to grow up with a lot of love for life. I have my mother turned out to be a biology teacher, and my uncles are pointing at plants and birds. So I had that from a very young age. And then I had this amazing art teacher at secondary school that guided me to puberty. And I thought, yes, I'm going to study art. So I went to study art history, and I wanted to take on biology courses. And the exam committee said, no, because you're doing an alpha study. Why are you wanting to do all these beta courses? That, for me, was the beginning of a journey in which I started to realize that in our Western mindset and our worldview, we think that nature and culture are two separate realms that we somehow shouldn't connect. I deep dived into that, way too long, 9 years of study. I'm not gonna bother you with that. But I ended up working on a museum that was about the relationship between humans and nature. And then I found out how deeply ingrained this cultural behavior actually is, because I could find it in Greek philosophy, I could find it in Christian thinking, in Enlightenment thinking, and in modern thinking. And now we are here Somehow we are trying to prove that we as human beings in Europe are fundamentally different than the rest of life. And as long as we keep having that barrier, we're not gonna scale up regenerative agriculture, so to say. So that for me was sort of a key insight. And then I thought the best thing I could do, because that's the story that was told to me as well, is sustainability, which is all about reducing your negative impact, but it makes us believe that the best we can do is to be a less negative human being. Why? Because at the core we still believe that it's either nature or culture, either nature or agriculture. And I saw this amazing documentary by John DeLeo of the regeneration of the Luz Plateau, and I realized for the first time in my life, because I never heard that story, that actually it can be both. You can regenerate a place so that the butterflies and the badgers and the water returns to the place, but also the social economic perspective of us as a society, as farmers, and we need them all. So when I saw that with my Spanish partner, by the way, Ricardo Cana Mateo, and I don't have to tell you about the certification of Spain, it's very visible and happening right now, we realized that we wanted to dedicate the rest of our lives to regeneration. It took us 8 years to find out that we needed to farm to actually do that. And then we started our farm, first a 5-hectare farm next to the city of Nijmegen, called Bodemzicht. And now we had the chance, beautiful, to actually move to a 10 times bigger farm in Lochem. That happened about 1 year ago with a beautiful organization, Lenteland, that actually works as a cooperative farm, trying to find out how we can rethink ownership and make it community farm, community owned, because one of the giant barriers we also have is land access. And the extremely expensive access to land. And in the Netherlands, it's gigantic. This problem, if you see what the price of a carrot is. So, what did we do? We moved to that farm and also at our previous farm, and we have now this mixed farm. So we have vegetables, we have eggs, we're planting 30 kilometers of fruit trees, we have herb layer. We're gonna all radically integrate it into radical diversity. And we're working now with 4 entrepreneurs that are also on the photo to make this work. And the thing is, one of the things that I expected, okay, I'm gonna have an issue with agricultural rules and regulations, right? Because they are made for industrial, monocultural companies. And you know what I am integrated, ecologically working, and also I'm a polyculture, so that doesn't fit. That I saw coming. What I didn't see coming, and I think we also need to address, that I also have an issue with nature regulations. Because we were farming so successfully, we were regenerating so successfully, red list species returned to our farm. The badgers were so happy they were reproducing, that was the whole point. And the moment you get a burrow in the middle of your fields, you have a problem. Because also there, we think it's either or. So either it should be nature with a gate around it, or it should be agriculture. So we need to find ways to change our mindset, to start to integrate these two, to come up with this beautiful thing that is not either or, but it's actually and. And yeah, that's what we're doing at the farm. So we're working not only on creating great nutritious food, but also on this cultural transition. And I'm very happy to say there are more people in the Netherlands that are working on this transition, and we're working with them. For example, We Are the Regeneration is also here today. So yeah, that's basically what we do.
Yep. Okay. I have to say I'm very nervous here. I'm used to talk to plants, not to people. By the way, I'm coming from 100 kilometers away from Barcelona. I'm from Catalonia, Spain. And yeah, the thing is that although my grandfathers were both of them were farmers. One was working with vegetables, and the other was a goats shepherd. All of them have to quit because of the Spanish War. So I miss a generation really, well, I was far away from the agriculture. So I studied engineering, and when I have my first kid, 17 years ago, I became ill. I became ill because I realized that all the time that I was investing in my life, it was to create a future that I don't want, or I didn't want to wish for my kids and for the others. So I became in a crisis, and then I was so privileged to meet one regenerative farmer from Australia, and then I could learn, and I say, okay, I need to study this. So I started farming 17 years ago in another place, and because of the Spanish crisis, the prices really go down, and we, as most of the people that doesn't have a farm and want to go to the rural areas, we get the most horrible piece of land that you can find on the top of the field of a hill that you have the best views but the poorest soil you can find. The expensive ones are on the valleys and are absolutely the stunning ones where you can see. So it means that you can see here the picture on the right, that we realized that we have a lot of bedrock. There was no grass in a lot of places, and we can, thanks of Google Maps, we can go back in time and another kind of technology to realize how the soil was getting worse. So for me, water was the first point in Spain, and then I decided to invest all my energy in a keyline design. That is something that maybe you have heard, otherwise you need to check. And so we started from the water design and then to the plants design. And yeah, but then also I realized that of the top 5 most energy consuming sectors, only agriculture could be net positive. So it means that when I don't think we are really talking about farming, I think that we are really talking about efficiency and getting the best that we can from the solar energy. And the regulations, they really don't work with that. We didn't get any subsidy because we wanted to have biodiversity. It means that we have more than 40 varieties of fruit trees. Here you only are watching like 2 hectares and we're managing 25 hectares. We have 3 gardening zones. We are growing lamb. We are growing a lot of different kind of fruit kind, also nuts. We are growing chickens, eggs, vegetables, of course, and also honey. Just that you can find when my neighbors, which is a super amazing big company in Spain, just plant some kind of cereal, all my bees die because of the pesticides. And there is no protection against it. Even I had my farm, and then this big company buy the land besides us, and then I have to, I couldn't stop, I couldn't sell the first 10 meters that were besides the other farm. They don't say you cannot spread pesticides 10 meters from this organic farm. I lost my production, you know. So for me, it's a lot of problems. So I think I don't have really much time, but yeah, I'm very happy to be here, really.
Hi, my name is José Luis. I'm also from Spain. I study veterinary, specializing in equine medicine, but 12 years ago, I started to manage a big farm in Spain, in one of a very dry area, with a very pure hay production of the land. And a woman told me, "Have you ever heard about holistic management?" I say, "Ever?" So I started to read, and at that moment, I have not any kids. Now I have 3, so there's a very good information about how regenerative farming helps to increase the population. So I had time in that moment, and I say, okay, holistic management, care about the pasture, and at the same time care about the welfare animal. And I was quite aware about how we keep the animal in conventional farming, because I usually say that we are not paying the cost for keep the animal in that situation. They pay the cost. If we must to live that they live, probably we don't need this kind of meat. So that break my brain. So I started to learn more about how to produce based on grassland. And I don't know if it was the best decision in my life, but 6 years ago, I decided to start my own farm, and we produce pasture chicken and grass-fed beef, and we sell direct to the consumer. Now we are growing very fast. We are processing about 30,000 birds per year and about 100 cows per year also. Sell, 82% directly to the consumer. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful how affect, and it's interesting the conversation because we speak about the barrier, and there is no any step that we do without any barrier. Imagine that if you it's difficult with the cows, imagine with the chicken. Chicken is the more regulated production. Imagine when the vet from the government came to our farm and say, okay, but the new law that came from Brussels say that you have a clean area and a dirty area. What is the limit? Because you have to put a very clear limit to say, maybe it's this road, and you have to isolate your birds from the wildlife, so you have to put a fence. Okay, and what is the size of the fence? Minimum 1 meter. I say, okay, we put 1 meter, but it's a stupid thing because you have to avoid the wildlife going to your farm. Say, they are not going into because they are actually in. In our farm there's a lot of different kind of animals. So it's beautiful how can we change our mind and start to think how we are going to be able to produce this another absolutely different way to produce. And just for finish, because we have not much time, I would like to end it with a beautiful sentence because I not come from a family farmer, and maybe that helped me to start because there is a beautiful sentence that say, we did it because we didn't know that it was impossible. And yes, sure, if I came from a chicken farm family, for sure I say, I was assured that I would not be able to keep broiler chicken on the pasture because, they are very sensitive, there are a lot of problems, but we are doing, So it's important that we have to keep pushing. And there's a question about you. Yes, we can be profitable without any subsidy because all of this land is a good farm production. How do you say? Nogal, Anna?
Walnut.
It's a farm to produce walnut wood. So there is only the concept for the CAP is forestry. So we don't receive any, but in the total, we are managing about 250 hectares, and they receive maybe 800 euros per year, something like that. And we keep with profitable. We're right to our break even of the 5 year, but it's quite normal. We have now growing. We have 8 employees, and it's a very nice future. So that's all.
Pretty cool, huh? So, questions, burning questions. I still have questions left over for the Slido, but we like to give priority to the people in the room. Nobody. Okay, so we're done now. Okay. We have a new voice in the room. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
I'm Emmanuel Petel. I'm working in DG Agri in European Commission, just to introduce myself. And for me, I appreciate to listen farmers with their own experience and journey. And in a way, we have some report on the burden for farmers. And maybe I need to read again, but there is some concern as regards the burden, but sometimes it's very useful for us to identify some key element and concrete element, because sometimes it's general speaking and everybody is fed up by PAP or some rule, and at the end we cannot progress because we cannot identify the key element. And it's important to make the link as well between what the European Commission impose and what member state apply or regional authority apply, and to have a more dialogue at this stage. But okay, it's case by case, but to identify sometimes some obstacle, because at some stage we cannot move forward. Yes, I want to say that because it's important to pick up the real element. And as regards general speaking on a landscape fisher, because it's an old story, and it was before the new CAP today, the current CAP, there was already some big discuss on landscape fisher and how to recognize landscape fishers. But I admit we made for 10 years progress to accept eligibility of landscape fisher in the parcel and in agriculture. It was not the case maybe 15 years ago, because everybody thinks, okay, subsidy has to be granted to the nice parcel without landscape fisher, because landscape fisher prevent production. But today we need to integrate landscape fisher. And in fact, in basic regulation, maybe it's not enough, but there is some key sentences to admit on the fact it's possible to have landscape fisher. But in a way, we have to work at some stage with member state and paying agency how they implement this basic regulation, because basic regulation offers some flexibility. But after is case by case, we have to work on that.
Thank you so much. Even though that wasn't a question, I think we are going to very much appreciate that DG Agri took the time to be here today. So thank you. Yes? Yeah.
Well, it's me again. So the question to all of you, because now we can see some really, let's say, mid-sized farming. Did you ever get any access to credit? How did you start, actually? What was the financing source? Because especially in Netherlands, to have a 50 hectares, it's a chunk, all right? So that's, you know, this is something in the process that it's actually the beginning. And we need to know how to convince the next farmers, you know, how to facilitate the process. Thanks.
Very quick answer. Do you know, we usually use, most of our facilities are portable. And because of that, you cannot use that as a grant to the banks. So I use my family house to grant the credit that I use in my farm. So, and the point that you were asking, maybe we can start in the general view and go into the more specific issue. But the one idea is the CAP is helping to these different ideas. So better use of the grassland, better use of the natural resource that we had in Europe, or not? Are we pushing to the farms from the south to keep tilling the soil because they receive 50% more CAP revenue? Because if they try to change to pasture, to perennial pasture, they decrease not only the subsidy, only the cost of the farm and the grant that they obtain from the banks. So yeah, these are, I think, a general idea. So yes, and the question for you, yes, it's a big deal to speak with the banks that they don't truly understand what is regenerative and why we have not, a barn, for example, and we are only using portable fence. So yes, it's a very big deal.
Thanks. Yeah, in the Netherlands, this is a huge issue because 1 hectare to buy is an average around 100K. And then we're not speaking about the buildings, which are just extremely expensive and driven by speculative markets. So I think there are 2 huge issues there: access to land, but also the security to long-term farm on land when it comes in tenant positions, which is also a huge issue if you want to do the investments in regenerating an ecosystems, because the risk is now very unfairly often put on the farmer. And we need to get rid of that. And what we need is patient capital. And banks are usually not providing that. So we need a shift in the financing system so we can make that work and we actually have those long-term investment in secure access to land that is not driven by speculative forces. That's a huge challenge for us all. So that's why I also say it's not only about getting more farmers on the land, it's also about rethinking the structures that are driving a specific kind of agriculture, like finance. And in my particular circumstance, I am a landland farm, which is a new kind of initiative, you could say, to get community-owned farms started and financed in that way. So Landland is a foundation that got a starting capital to pre-finance a farm. Then a local corporation is founded that is actually running the farm, that needs to have profitable business lines, but is also co-owned by the community because everybody can buy in certificates. So that's how we repay our debt to the Landland Foundation. So both with the profitable business and with the certificates, and with the money that flows back to the Landland Foundation, we pre-finance another farm. So it's sort of a revolving movement. So there are several of these initiatives that are amazing in the Netherlands as startups. So it's like really bottom-up, community-driven initiatives. But of course, like it also is with the bottom-up pioneering farmers, you want that to become the new normal. So we need also the other financial structures to rethink how can we get that security, how can we get that patient capital moving in, because there's enough money, it just needs to flow to the farmers.
Yeah. If I can, may I ask a third way? Well, I just totally forgot, but we are living as a cooperative. We are a community of 10 people living there, so it means that the loan can be shared with more people. And because of the things that Anne was sharing, also we created also with more people like a foundation to try to keep the most arable land that we can and put it in the hands of the commons projects. And for us, it's really important because Spain now has no soil protection as other European countries. The price is not fixed by the real price of the land. It's related to other things, more related to tourism, renewable energies, and we are losing a capital of biology. And I think that something that we also have to point is that where you have these solar panels or you have these renewable energies, you get a lot of heat into the ground, and then it kills all microbiology. So when we are adding renewable production, you are killing the soil. And you can imagine that in a 1 hectare, you can have up to 2 tons of worms working downstairs. But if the soil is dead, you're not gonna have worms, even though they spray pesticides and herbicides. So it's easy for them to maintain the solar panels. And for us, it's a matter of a regulation that really protects the soil.
If I can just add quickly, that's the way things are being done now, and completely. But the way things can be done, agrivoltaics, is the inclusion of agriculture and solar energy production together, so where you can have those living root systems underneath, you can have that protection from the higher temperatures, you can be including different kinds of livestock in order to be cycling those nutrients, so that you're also getting more kinds of photosynthesis working together. You've got more energy flow above and below the soil, as well as having stacked economic enterprises, making it economically viable for everybody. So it's not the cow, it's the how. Yeah, we've got to. Oh, Marco, please.
Just one sentence adding to what you were asking and adding to everything they said before. Stepping back a little bit to our mindset. So if we will start making agriculture with the first question that should be what this land can give me, there is also another thing that we have to consider, that we can use very margin area soils that have not big value at the beginning, especially for the new generation farmers, because every kind of situation, every kind of soil can produce something. Okay, it's just a matter to really understand what is needed. My farm is a very rocky soil, quite high, 600 meters on the sea level, cold in the winter, not so hot in the summer, but I mean, it's not the best land for arable crops, but it's excellent for animals on pasture. So if you shift your mindset, you don't have to buy the best farm ever, but knowing that every single situation is different, but this is something to think about, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Matteo from COIS Impact Finance Organization. I repackaged my question that I had from before. because it seems to me that all the points come to the before, the data, more supply chain, the certification, now land or different financing. It's ultimately all about information. That trust we were talking is about information. Data is like 21st century way to ultimately call information. So how much time, cost, stress does it take for you to provide all this information to all your actors? Is it like your daily policy making? There are so many organizations that ask you stuff or come to the farmer whenever, someone said before. So how much time, stress, and if you can share a bit more about that.
Maybe could I start, because I'm really stressed in my farm. I'm the stress man. If you need the stress, I'll be there. I invest a lot of time in just taking data. For me, stories are essential, but data is best. As an engineer, I'm trying to get samples from everywhere, trying to work with some universities, and we try to externalize this research. But for me, it's super interesting because, for example, we learned that we started about 400 grams of pasture per square meter. Now, after 10 meters, we have 4 kilos of grass per square meter. We move from 1.3% of organic matter into our soils, which means that it's considered a dead soil in terms of biology. Now we are above 3%. And I need this data to show, for me, it's like, I don't know who wants this data, but more than the people that we are in. But there was one thing that I really considered, that is that most of the farmers we learn through the eyes. We listen through the eyes. It means that we need to see the grass green when it's all yellow, and we need that you are having a good car, and they want to see you that you have a lot of incomes. So this is another kind of social data that maybe it's also important to collect, and, for example, to see that we are all profitable.
Yeah, I think I spent way too much time explaining everything all the time in relation to your question, because I prefer to be more at the farm and less explaining half an hour why an egg, grass-fed in a chicken mobile is different from one in an industrial stable, for example. And that's why I also think that we all need to celebrate our responsibility in getting that story out, because it's essential that the farmers tell that story, but it's essential that we tell this story, like Susanna also did, on all these different levels. Because I do think, as John D. Liu once said, we need a tsunami of consciousness. And we need to help each other to get that done. And as I said before, that the financial risk should not only be with the farmer. I also think that the farmer should not be the one that pays for the monitoring to prove that they're actually doing something good. Why do we always have to prove that we do something good instead of looking the other way, that actually somebody who is using a lot of pesticides, for example, doesn't have to spend time and energy on that part. So it's also about changing, looking at how can we change the rules of the game so we can actually enable that change that we want to see, and make sure that we share those time and resources together.
And continue with that line. Another question beyond that is that we are paying exactly the same tax with the others, but we are not destroying our river. We are not using antibiotics in our animals. So one of the big issues that as you know, in human medicine is the antibiotic resistance. But we are not using antibiotics to keep our chicken healthy. But we all of us are paying the cost for have resistance to antibiotics. But as our regenerative farming, we keep paying the same tax, but we are not producing this effect. And we are not affecting to the grassland, we are affected to the river. So there's another thing that and we must explain that, and explain how affect when you introduce the grain in a ruminant or not. And as you know, the fat of this animal that you told is another similar in the wildlife is the wild salmon. And we are able to produce this in the driest area of Spain. Only keep cows eating grass. It's a pity that is absolutely abnormal. That's reality. That's all.
Back quickly to the data question. On our farm, we also do ecological outcome verification, which means that every year we do analysis on 10 different points with 15 indicators for pasture health indicators. And then every 5 years we do the deep dive, the long-term monitoring that looks at lagging indicators, so things like water infiltration and biodiversity and plant species and the soil testing and all these sorts of things. On our case, we have a small farm. It takes about 2 hours every year to do it, and then about a day and a half every 5 years to do it. But that is also completely relative to the size of farm and how far away those points are. We aren't part of the cap. We don't get cap payments because for our size, we would get less than 400 euros a year. And I can tell you all of the paperwork that would be required in order to get those 400 euros, not worth my time. So, but we are small. It would be big ones that maybe needs the help, but this is what it is.
Very quick, like if you can go around, would be lovely. Would you rather be rewarded for the information you provide or for the impact that you create, as you were saying before, for the, better water quality?
For me, it's enough that the other ones, the ones that are destroying ecosystems and ecosystem services, will pay them. I don't want to have money back. It's enough that will be clear that my chicken is not expensive. It's that chicken that externalizes all the cost on the community.
But we have her too.
Hi.
We only have 5 more minutes, so let's speak.
Hi, Mark from We Are Regeneration in the Netherlands. First of all, thanks EARA for doing this. And most of all, no one's talking about the energy of all the farmers on stage, which keeps striking me every time that we work with farmers. They're all young, they're all smart, they're all brave, and they're all doing this against all kinds of barriers, like said. In the Netherlands, we're doing a pilot on PGS, Participatory Guarantee System, with 15 pioneers. And my question to you is, because I don't really believe in an old system of certification, but we do believe, like you said, in trust and in community-led, farmer-led trust amongst themselves. So how do you regard a possible PGS system for regenerative farmers in Europe?
I'm just flattered that he called me a young farmer. We are. But back to the serious question. Who wants to talk about this possible PGS mechanism? Are you familiar with the PGS mechanism?
No.
No. But I thought Anna might. So
I have not much energy to develop this new light. But in my personal case, is because the demand is very high and increasing constantly. In order that if we should be able to teach the society how important is the way that we eat and how it affects to our health, it's going to change everything. Maybe we don't need to do 3 trips per year. Maybe we can do only for 1 holiday and then eat better the rest of the year. So I think it's a conversation about the price of the regenerative product. If we truly know how affect directly to our health, the price is not very high. Absolutely.
Great, thanks. Do you want to?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we get to a system of certification that is not practice-based but outcome-based. And I think PGS could then be a way of doing it, of certifying that trust that somebody is actually doing it, but we can also measure the outcomes. And I think we should do it both. To get, we have a proposal for that, the CAP proposal. That is going to come up, and Simon will tell you all about it later. I think it is important because we have to grow more regenerative farms in a beautiful way. And yes, now I'm certified by customers, because we're still not that many farms, so we can get certified by our customers if we do direct marketing. But what we also need is the supply chains to enable more people to farm regeneratively and to eat beautiful regenerative products. And then we need some kind of way to ensure that actually what people are eating, I guess, is a good product, and PGS could be a solution to that, I think.
Thank you for that. One last question.
Thank you. My name is Adrian Janes. I'm from the Hungarian Chamber of Agriculture, and I'm very happy to be here. If you don't mind, I have two questions, basically to end, but it can be extended to all the panelists. So for me, it was very interesting to hear your story and the interlinkages between culture and agriculture and the environment. And one of my questions is that, can you present this to the younger generation? Because what we face in Hungary, that the farming generation is growing older and older, and we cannot attract young people. Actually, I'm speaking of the Gen Z, so the people around the age of 20 or early 30s. So can you share this type of thinking, this type of view with the younger people? And my other question is, it was also very interesting to hear about the protected species. We have the same problem. So when we have a good regenerative farmer who regenerates the land and protected species and community interest species starts to appear, the laws kick in, the nature laws kick in, and how you overcome, is this an obstacle for you, and how you overcome it? Would you please share? Thank you.
Answering for the first question, why there is no new generation going to the farming? Because what the kind of product that we are selling to them, that there's no holidays, 7 days working, no free times, a lot of stress, a lot of debts for the banks. So it's normal that they don't want to go into. If we teach them that there is no any best kind of job to do, stay in the field with the animals and with your vegetable garden and producing food, real food, that changed absolutely. In my own company, I decided to have, maybe have not much money in the beginning, all days, 15 days of holidays. You know, with my family to keep this situation together. And yeah, it's important. And the new internet tools that we have help a lot to sell better our product, to manage them better. Now I have a virtual fence that is incredible to manage the cows. I moved the cows this morning at 7 o'clock from the hotel, and I moved them, and I only have one person to go and say, okay, they're all alive. You know, there's no any injury or something like that. But yeah, the technology is helping a lot of us. So yeah, there's a new kind of future for them.
Yeah, and I don't think it's only the new generations. I think it's all of us. Because I think it's actually not something new, it's something very old. So what we're speaking about is connection to land, place, communities, which a lot of indigenous communities actually know how to live and work like that. And we are just disconnected from that. And I also really deeply believe that we all long for it. And you can see that so easily. I mean, in the COVID crisis, nobody went to have a nice walk on a parking place in front of a supermarket. Nobody. We all went to the forest because actually it regenerates us. And we all still have that, but we haven't learned how to do it. We haven't learned to interact and to connect. And I see that a lot. I see that also a lot in young people. Like, they're afraid to interact because we believe in this barrier between nature and culture. They're afraid to prune a tree, for example, or to work with chickens. Most of the people that come to my farm never touched a chicken in their lives while they've been eating chicken. So I think it's a connection crisis, and I think we all long for places that are alive and thriving and that smell nice and are full of insect and actually have bird sounds, but we need to learn to reconnect. And sometimes it can be very easy. So I have people at the farm and I ask, for example, do you hear the birds? And then I see a city filter dropping and suddenly people hear the birds. And that can sometimes be enough to get people on a track to start to to listen and to connect with the rest of life, and it also always sparks joy. So I think we all have it. We just need to ignite that little fire that is there.
I could add that for me, being like a kind of inspiration or be an open farm, for me, it's one of the basics of my life. If I couldn't do this, I think I'm gonna move and I'm gonna go to any flat in any city in the world. So that's why I think also that the European Union has some programs that can help the young people to come to visit farms. For example, we have internship for 7 months a year for 4 young people that could be there just working and learning and trying to live as a community and trying to see what's all about moving the animals every day. Well, not every day because we also have rest days, but I think that's important that the young people could do this and not just to think at something impossible and in a vision. A lot of people that came out to our farm to be there like 7 months, now they are farming, you know, and there's people from Belgium, we have people from Italy, we have a man, for example, that rejected totally the olive production from their family in Italy. After these 7 months, he started to manage part of their family farms, the 20% of the farm, in a regenerative way. And he started earning money, and then the father just give it, okay, now you can manage all of this. So I think that that's a good point, and that we can share this lifestyle. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
May I? Yeah. Very quickly. People now think about farming like something abstract. Farming is producing food. People will go back to farming if they will be trained to recognize food. Till the moment people will eat a tomato in January and they will never realize that that one is not a tomato, it's water, pink water, they will never be interested in understanding more about food, never be interested in understanding where the food comes from. To me, this is the key. People must be trained in their young age to food awareness. This is the point. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Just quickly to follow up on Anne's point, my husband and I have cleared that if during COVID we weren't at the ranch, one of us would be in jail and the other would be dead. So that return to connection is important. No, but just quickly on the question that didn't get answered about how do you deal with having regenerated so much that the wildlife comes back. And within holistic management and holistic planned grazing, we actually fit that in. So when you know that it's the breeding season for some bird or a kind of turtle or for some sort of animal, you plan around that, right? When we're planning grazing, we don't just calculate how much feed the animal needs, but also how much the wildlife needs and how much the soil needs. So we talk about the 3 rations. I don't want to kick into farmer teaching mode, but we can talk about more of that.
But perhaps very, very shortly to add to that, because it is an issue. And I think it's ridiculous that if I get protected species at the farm, which is the whole point of my farm, in a way, that I have to, and I got also a lot of people at the farm, which is good, like all sorts of life. I can get stressed about people noticing red list species at my farm, because there might be somebody who decides to write that down on a little paper and send it to the province, and I might get a problem with the thing that I'm doing. But it's exactly the same mindset in biology and in nature conservation, that separation mindset that leads us into those kind of rules and regulations. And I mean, I get where they come from, because I feel personally it affects me a lot, the loss of life. So I get where they come from, but I don't think they will help us as a society to move forward, because we need to learn to live together with the rest of life, and we need legislation that actually supports that.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that's a beautiful way to end this section We are now going to move on to 3 presentations by some of the top experts in the field. We're very excited to have them. So let's thank our farmers. Great. Thank you so much. So now we're going to get up. Vincent? Yes. Thank you so much to Vincent, who's coming to join us. I will give you your clicker.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, EARA, to invite me today. So I'm born in a farm, in a dairy farm, an arable crop farm in Normandy, in France. And then I was really happy to help on the farm as a kid, but I was quite afraid to wake up at 6 o'clock every day and to drive the rest of the day tractors. So I have decided to study industry, and I am an engineer in industry. And at the end of my study, I say, okay, no, I have to come back to agriculture. I never been an engineer, and I have decided to produce something, not on my family farm, but on another farm. And I was really inspired by permaculture, and I asked, okay, I can grow vegetables. I'm really interested in vegetables. I can grow vegetables differently, sustainably. And I have discovered, I have not get really precise response to my questions by the permaculture world. So I have asked, I look and I have seen that there are a lot of things about no-dig vegetable gardening in France, recent things, and I was one of the first farms who make a transition between coming from a grassland to a vegetable without no-dig, without any tillage operation. And I have never tilled my soil since 10 years to produce all the vegetables. What I have learned was on YouTube. It was the beginning of a work provided by some farmer who says, okay, we will invite the best experts and we will record the session and put it all in YouTube. First, it was in Dailymotion, really old, and yet in YouTube. And after my first year of production in 2015, we have made a first session to train local people, and there was 20 people there, and 20 people on the waiting list. So we make a second training session, and 20 people were there, 20 people were on the waiting list, and we say, okay, finally in just one winter we have trained 60 people on the farm based on that, and just after we have decided to create a local association to promote no-dig vegetable gardening in Normandy. 1 year after, we have made a lot of videos, new videos, and we have put it on YouTube, and we have decided, okay, we have to move on and to go faster, not speak only about vegetables, but to speak about everything, and that's why we have created a company called Vers de Terre Production, and it is a big YouTube channel with today 1,000 videos. And if you take the time to look at all the videos, it will take 1 year to look everything. And it's only videos about agroecology, farm portraits, example for vineyard, for livestock, for everything. And you can look at that, and we will speak about that. And then we create also an association named National Center of Agroecology in France, and I will speak about that. And then, so I will speak about how we manage information, knowledge sharing in France, and how it has changed a lot of things there. So there's a lot of organization about agroecology. Today we can speak that everybody is making agroecology in France, EARA, CIRAD, all the big institutions. That are some core partner, but we are working with a lot of people. So you see it, for instance, for vegetable, Maraîchage Sol Vivant is a network of vegetable gardener, but there are a lot of people there. our keywords is the same as you are you using. So rotational grazing, permanent soil coverage, cover crops, intercropping, no-till or reduced till. So you know that I don't have to go further. And what we want is to first understand, then assess, and then share, disseminate at large scale. So we engage. We engage people, we encourage the use of innovative tools also, because we know that we have a lot of modern tools to better understand what is there, and we have a lot of way to massify the sharing of knowledge. So we have also this picture, okay, we say we can first have acculturation phase where we demonstrate on YouTube that it's possible. Today on YouTube we have 15 million of views. That is, so we have touched maybe 1 million of persons in France, which is not only in France, also in Belgium, all the French-spoken countries. But 90,000 followers on YouTube, and so it's the first agronomic channel in France about agroecology, and we are really happy to that. With Vers de Terre Production, we train 3,000 people per year. Farmers mainly, but also technicians and neo-farmers. And then we want to multiply, experiment directly with the farmer on the farm, and we document it at the end on a platform called Triple Performance. So it's a Wikipedia for agroecology, dedicated to agroecology, and yet it's in 6 languages, so multiple language. And we have there 15,000 views per month, which is the best score as traffic in knowledge platform for agroecology. And then we will deploy. So we are also involved with the National Center of Agroecology called CNA in different European projects yet, and we have we have been in board on different projects in order to take this. There is a lot of money for agriculture development, and we can take a part for that to create what we want to do, and it's what we continue to do that, and I think we have to continue to work on that with EARA. We are also working with Agroecology Europe, for instance, with Henriette, who is also here. And we see that there are a lot of movement around Europe about that, and we have to go further. So one of our key points is how to disseminate knowledge, how to make visible the daily work of farmers, and how to make engagement, because, for instance, we have a recent study this year that said that 80% of the farmers think that the first lever to engage a transition is the economic aspects. And so we have to speak about economic numbers and to spread them. So for that, what we've done basically is we make this kind of portrait. You can find my farm portraits on the Triple Performance platform, Ferme de l'Alliance. That is my colleague, and we have a lot of farm portraits where you know really what is the results at the economic level, but also at the environmental level, the social level, measured directly. And we have more than 100 farm portraits available on the Triple Performance platform, not only for vegetable, but for all kinds of things. And we want to continue to massify the production of farm portraits at the French level. And we are really happy also to help at the EU level, because we know that is the best way to engage people. Then it's good to make fact sheet, to make farm portraits, but we have to disseminate it. So that is a comparison about the YouTube visibility. For instance, you have CIRAD or INRAE YouTube channel. That is the best funding agency in France for agriculture, and it's absolutely not the same scope of dissemination. That is numbers for the Triple Performance platform. And you see that there are different websites in France about agriculture, big website, like a magazine for agriculture. But when you look only at the knowledge hub, there are Triple Performance traffic and other. And that is a result of the good use of social network. And that is amazing because today everybody knows Vers de Terre Production in France. Everybody knows what is agroecology. Everybody can find numbers, examples, local examples about how to do that. And we have to continue to make this journalism locally, to make these farm portraits and to demonstrate that it's possible in a lot of contexts, a lot of things. So that is really basic things, but it's required not so many means and money. We can do that with a low-cost approach. Everybody has a smartphone, has a recorder. Everybody can buy a good microphone because it's really good to have a good and then to make these farm portraits. And I ask you to collect this kind of numbers. EARA is making also benchmark, and we can work on that. And at each presentation, you have to speak about your key figures because it's the best way to say that it's possible. There was one question about how to convince bank to have this start money, but today, for instance, vegetable producer, it's really easy. We have 50 farm portraits locally, demonstrate that people are earning money with this production. So the guy in bank say, okay, you have the key numbers, we can support you, and it's what we have done. And we can do that for other production, and it's what we try to do, using also the students, because we have a lot of students everywhere and in agriculture sector, and they have to work on reports so they can provide us nice farm portraits. So that's why we are automizing all the way to produce farm portraits, the way to produce the graphs, the way to collect the numbers, and we can help also you. And we have a current European project to push this methodology at the international level. Yes, so I'm finished. So just the first step, and what for me is the priority, because we have a lot of things to do, but what is really priority is to document and make visible pioneers, that's sure, also at EU level, to develop research action with farmers, and also to have, I think, a big work about data, because we have to better understand all the links between farm practices and biodiversity, water, soil quality, nutritional quality, and we have not enough raw information to be sure about what we are saying, and it's the only way to learn. Science is based on the raw data, and we have to collect it properly, and that is not done really nicely. We see in each country at EU level, and it's a big, for me, priority subject, and then to use social networks again and to have this loop. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. No. We will have time to attack you with questions, I'm sure, afterwards. But next, we're going to move on to, unfortunately, Pablo Manzano. I live in the Basque region. Was very proud to have one of my Basque colleagues coming. His flight coming in from Kenya was late. Everybody's worked in Africa, you know, these things happen. So he, unfortunately, is not going to be with us today. So I highly suggest reaching out to him on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow the work that BC3 does, which is amazing. So we're just going to skip Pablo and go straight to Max. Max Meister, who is going to discuss the work that he does with NABU. Come and join. Thank you. I follow him on LinkedIn and only met him last night. It was kind of a fangirl moment.
Thank you for the kind introduction. And a special thanks for the opportunity to be presenting the study for the first time today. It's a rather interesting consortium that we have set up between a nature conservation NGO, but also the ECAF, the European Conservation Foundation, or Federation, which is a farmers or agriculture NGO, and the German branch GKB, and supported by the University of Weinstefan. The study is focusing on the fossil input use in conservation agriculture in Germany over the last 3 years, or the 3 years 2020 to 2022, including. So yeah, with this study we wanted to really dig into farmers' data and show their performance and especially their successes and put numbers on them. And put the numbers out there. So for these studies, we acquired or won over 17 farms, conventional arable land farms, and for the condition for participating in the study was to fully apply conservation agriculture for at least 3 years, which means by definition, conservation agriculture is defined by the Food and Agriculture Organization, by the UN, as conducting the 3 principles of minimal soil disturbance, mostly direct seeding or no-till, permanent soil cover through either mulch or living plants and roots, and especially maximizing plant diversity, either within the crop rotation or within the crop itself. So for the 17 farms, we have, for example, also one founding member of EARA, Alex Klümper, who participated on this. And also, I've been told, Géraud is also working in conservation agriculture for all over 40 years in his farm, I think. So the benefit, or talking about conservation agriculture is basically a defined part of regenerative agriculture, as it uses these 3 principles, and regenerative agriculture is basically building up on that. These farms submitted their data, luckily or kindly, and we analyzed the parameters on plant protection, nitrogen fertilizer. We focused only on nitrogen fertilizer in this one. Fuel, of course, soil health, and of course the output, the yield. For the study, we clustered the farms in, as seen here. Of course, agriculture is heterogeneous, and we have to make some simplification, and we sorted these farms into their soil climatic regions. And to have a reference, we applied data from an agriculture consultancy that gave us data for these farms, having them in their region, and they passed us data on plant protection and nitrogen fertilizer. So in order for us to make a viable comparison here. So let's dig into the data, and let's step through the results step by step. First up, the relative reduction in toxicity. For the toxicity, in order to assess toxicity, we needed to use an indicator. We used the pesticide load indicator, which is already scientifically validated and in use in Denmark. They've used it as a base on a tax system that they set up in Denmark. And within the study, we focused on the 4 typical crops in Germany, which is winter wheat, winter rapeseed, maize, and barley. And yeah, first of all, we see on the left side the conventional comparison reference data, and on the right side the conservation agriculture data. On first side, we see that some crops are more intensive than others, but most prominently, of course, we see the vast and significant reduction in toxicity load. And especially it's important, and let me stress, that we need, in order to assess plant protection products, we need to look at their toxicity, not at their amount. For example, the active substance of insecticides is highly more toxic than some other herbicides, for example, and we need to make that justice. So we see an overall reduction of around 70% in winter wheat and in rapeseed, as expected, less in maize, and 45% reduction in barley. We also see that, and that is a very, very important point, that this system of direct seeding is usually associated with heavy herbicide use. We don't see this in our data. When fully applied conservation agriculture, we also see that farmers manage to halve their herbicide use, which is a very, very important finding. So overall, putting all these crops together, it's a 52% reduction in toxicity load within these crops. So next one is the relative reduction of nitrogen use in conservation agriculture. The biggest one, winter wheat, again, minus 23%, and barley, minus 16%, and an average that makes around 15 to 20% relative nitrogen reduction in conservation agriculture compared to our reference data. Of course, at least these two factors have profound impact on soil health. And that's why, of course, we tried to assess soil health. We used an indicator, the community level physical profiling approach by BioTrax that stands next to eDNA approach, and that lets us assess functional biodiversity and microbial performance. Theory was the less you disturb soil, the more healthier it is, and the less you apply, the more healthier it is. So our data shows that this is true in these cases. For 6 farms, we conducted soil samples and soil samples from the farms right next to it. So within the same soil climatic region, only the soil management is different. And we can see a higher microbial performance, significantly higher, and a higher functional biodiversity, especially more fungi within the soil. And they have a more balanced bacteria to fungi ratio, which is really important for plant health, but also for soil health. So what does all this input give us basically as output? The relative yield increase is in winter wheat around 7%, barley 6%, rather high in grain maize, and a reduction in rapeseed, which was due to a high insecticide or sorry, I forgot the word. Anyway, then after all, we wanted to have this graph into a transition phase. For this, we conducted farmers' interviews and showing us and talking to them what their transition phase looked like. How far did they reduce after, for example, 1, 2, 3, or up to 5 years within fully applying conservation agriculture. So for the first thing, we have fuel that we also assessed. There we have put out 3 different scenarios, 1 direct seeding, 1 mulch seeding, and 1 conventional tilling. And there we calculated 70-75% reduction in fuel use. Nitrogen use, as just discussed, about 15 to 20% reduction, which goes there quite slowly. And we have a big reduction in especially pesticides, as discussed, minus 52% or minus 50% in herbicides, 80% and up to 90% insecticides. And interesting, farmers told us that these results quickly show after transitioning to conservation agriculture. So after the first year, farmers told us that they use only 50% of insecticides, and after 3 years, almost none anymore. Same with fungicides. After 2 years, they use only 60% round, and after 3 years, they're far below 50%, especially also with herbicides. So in contrast to that, what does the yield say? We see a little dip of minus 5%. That is not necessarily due to the system itself, but more with experience that farmers have to gain within these new systems. And of course, mistakes are being made, as it is in agriculture, and sometimes the weather is also not contributing as it should. But after, in the end, we see a 105% or 5% increase in yield after all. So wrapping this up, it is a minus 70% toxicity, in average up to 50% toxicity, up to 20% nitrogen use reduction, and 70%, around 70% fuel reduction, improved soil health, microbial performance, and functional biodiversity, and in the end, plus 5% higher yield. So this makes us, shows us basically that conservation agriculture is a system that is able to produce more with less input. And up to of course, wrapped up, is up to 15% higher profits in conservation agriculture in our example of winter wheat, giving us up to 80 to 120 euros more per hectare and year in conservation agriculture. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Max. I think for me, the big takeaway from that is the imaginary narrative of the J curve that comes as a result of the transition to regenerative, that you're going to have these huge losses the first several years, and then it's going to take a while. You slowly work your way back up. Clearly, this is not the case. So thank you so much for that, Max. Now we're going to move on to our last, our last presentation in this section. I'd like to welcome up Andy Griffiths from Diageo, who is going to show us what one of the companies who's really stepping up to the game on regen is doing. So please welcome.
Welcome, and a real pleasure to be here, particularly to be at an event where the bulk of voices in the room are actually farmers. So really appreciate that, and really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. So I'm Andy Griffiths. I'm Global Head of Transformational Partnerships at Diageo. So Diageo, the home of Guinness, Baileys, Don Julio, and Johnny Walker, amongst many. And my team are really focused on looking at how we can drive effective and efficient collaborations globally to really address the big systemic challenges facing the food system. And two of those that are relevant today, one is efficient scaling of regen ag, and then the second one is effective and efficient funding models, so how we bring together different funding interests to really unlock those opportunities. So from a Diageo perspective, we've for a while now, back in pre-2020, really taken a focus on integrated approaches, so looking at how we support as an underpinning principle of our business models, both social and environmental outcomes. Again, I won't go into the detail here, but if you're interested, it's online in our annual report. But specifically on agriculture, I guess the key thing for us is really understanding what are the principal drivers. You know, we hear a lot of organisations talk about the importance of regen ag, but we really need to make sure that it's business relevant. So one of the first things that we've done is done some real deep analysis in terms of where our dependencies sit and the risks associated with those across different crops and geographies around the world. And that's given us a real insight in terms of where and how we need to lean in. What we've also done is looked at our scale of influence. So across some of those crop geographies, we're a very influential player. So although we're looking at how we leverage those different collaborations, we've actually got the ability to be the principal anchor organisation to drive progress. There are other crop geographies where it's a big driver for us in terms of impact, but we recognise that we're not necessarily the primary anchor organisation. So again, looking at how we bring in those other interests, those other anchor organisations, again, to drive scale, but leveraging the insights and connections that we've built already. So again, a real focus on having a clear understanding and then rationalising that in terms of the business case. So I'll give you a quick example in terms of Guinness. We've got a number of programmes that we're looking at. We recognise that the implications and the approaches required vary from crop and geography perspective. So Guinness is one example where we've looked at our barley that we require for making Guinness, and again built this kind of overarching model in terms of optimising productivity, but within the natural boundaries of the system. So again, 4 key principles for this specific programme in terms of obviously baselining, both the practices and integrity. Really demonstrating understanding and then demonstrating what are the key decarbonisation levers. Understanding the broad opportunities and challenges, particularly cost. We've had a lot of points raised today about cost. And then use that to inform both our future strategy, but important ensuring that we're leveraging the science, building the science, and working with others to affect that broader change. So again, some of our programs are starting relatively small, but with the real intention of building that understanding to enable effective scale. And then through that, leveraging those understandings across our broader supply chain, but also with other peers. So again, we work very closely with the likes of OP2B and their membership to really drive aggregated action and focused intervention. So in terms of the Guinness programme, again, we brought in 3 of our key suppliers with a range of different farming models. So we've got some small farmers, medium, and also some large farmers. again, to understand not just the practical interventions and outcomes, but also different ways of engaging farmers, what the primary drivers are for them, why they might lean in, and how they might increase engagement and development. But also what we've done is brought in a number of different organisations as well as research partners, again, to build that evidence base. We also have an open innovation platform where we're working with some of these partners, again, to test, develop and scale their propositions as well. And again, looking in terms of building that evidence base on an integrated basis. So again, we're not focused principally on carbon. It's about what are the primary drivers within the concept of regen ag. So for us, you can hear we're doing work with AgriSound and Chirp, looking at actually being able to use acoustics to understand the biodiversity within those landscapes. Also looking at how, through the work we're doing with AgriCarbon in terms of understanding the carbon within the soil, but also looking at some of the other soil health metrics, how we can then, working with the likes of precision nutrition, work with farmers to build much more informed nutrition plans for their fields. So again, driving enhanced performance, enhanced understanding, but also in a number of instances, helping the farmers start to take cost out of their activities as well. So again, working with these guys is core, both in terms of building that evidence base, but again, also supporting the development and scaling of the underpinning tools. So it's just a quick overview. Obviously, we're managing it differently in different areas. So for example, if we looked at Africa, we work with about 130,000 smallholders globally, many of which are in Africa. So we're working with over 10,000 smallholders there, but with a different model in terms of building village-based advisory networks and how we support in terms of both education and also provision of seed to mitigate some of the risk with testing some of these. So again, different models, different places, really trying to understand what's going to work best in those different locations. The other thing that I didn't mention at the start, I'm also co-founder of Landscape Enterprise Networks. So we've been using that platform again to really look at the commercial proposition as well. So how do we help organisations who have a dependency on the landscape to understand what those dependencies are and then come together and work together to co-fund the outcomes that we're all interested in terms of those landscapes. So a good example in terms of lens might be in England at the moment. We have programmes across UK, Italy, Hungary, Poland, and in east of England, we've got not just agri-food off-takers, we've got water utility companies, we've got local authorities, all looking for different outcomes. So it might be flood risk mitigation, it might be water quality, but again, they're all prepared to fund those different outcomes. And by focusing on an outcome-based proposition, it basically enables us to build those trades to provide greater funding for the farmers to drive that transition. And that, with the work that we've been doing, really informs some of the key insights in terms of where we stand at the moment. So the first one is, it's really important if we're going to drive scale of change and efficient change, that we take an integrated landscape approach. It means we can bring together different players, both in terms of delivery, but also different funders as well, and different policymakers to start locking in those opportunities for change. The second one, which I've just alluded to, is leveraging those different shared interests. So this isn't just about food security, it isn't just about carbon. There are a number of different outcomes which many different interests are prepared to fund. So how do we bring those together? Again, leveraging blended finance, looking at how we leverage public interests as well. So for example, in the UK, we worked helping to evolve the ELM, Environmental Land Management Scheme, government scheme, to basically enable blended finance, so we can bring that business and public finance together. Definitely being science-led, but also acknowledging that we have a key role to play in terms of building the evidence base. So again, our programs, and you'll see it with the Guinness program as an example, we have a lot of work underway in terms of drawing out all those different insights, working with our academic partners to then understand what that means going forwards. Standardise and simplify. This is probably more targeted at the business world. There's a proliferation of different models and different asks, different expectations, which can be confusing and drive real inertia. So again, working with the likes of OP2B and Sci Platform and others, looking at how we start to drive standardisation, simplification, help not just farmers, but the broader general public understand what the agricultural transition can look like and what it means. And then finally, and for me most importantly, is keep the farmer front of mind. There's perhaps a few pencil farmers out there. Our focus is really about understanding what farmers need in terms of unlocking and enabling that transition. And again, no greater way of doing that by getting your boots on and getting out in the field. So again, my team are very much focused on how they build that understanding, with actually most of them coming from either an agricultural or regulatory background themselves. So that's it for me. Just a quick overview. Want to give a bit of a snapshot from a business perspective and actually why this is important, but why it's really important that we work together across the business spectrum, but with the policymakers and with the farmers to actually unlock and enable efficient transition. So, thank you very much.
Now, we're getting to the meat of it. You've met our farmers, now meet our brains. Simone Kramer. Simone is going to go through very quickly, since we're running out of time, but very quickly, our Common Agriculture Policy Reform Proposal, which he was the mastermind of, and the pilot project, and everything. So great. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, I'm just weaving what the farmers are making up so that we can put it on nice PowerPoint slides, that's all. And yeah, I think we'll touch on everything that was here, because we as a pioneering farmer movement practicing regenerating forms of agriculture, may that be holistic management, conservation agriculture, agroecology, organic and so forth, maybe we are 10–15% of farmers and land in Europe. And what's really driving us at EARA is how can we help all our other farmers to achieve the same and come on the same journey of continuous improvement. And we believe at the heart what we need most to enable that is less bureaucratic workload for farmers, less risk for farmers, more planning security for farmers, better deals for farmers, and better knowledge. In specific terms, so also the PowerPoint slides still can improve as we all do. In specific terms, that means we need a coherent and harmonized public-private data needs. It came up already in the discussions. We cannot all ask farmers for different kinds of data, both from the public and the private sector. We need context-specific transition insurance and enabling financial support. Farmer needs predictable regulatory, market and subsidy environments, and they need secured offtake at fair prices and fair qualities of that produce. And of course, we need better knowledge and the almighty mindset shift through management and peer-to-peer support networks, and support those who are out there already driven by farmers or Vincent, agroecology, conservation agriculture movements and so forth. We think we can make it simple without making it reductionistic, but actually to create an understanding of the holistic regeneration journey that's context-specific and emergence facilitating. So if you go, for example, into life sciences, but also in agricultural sciences, both our yields and all ecosystem services and biodiversity depend on net primary productivity, photosynthesis. We can measure that from space very easily, cost efficiently, quite robustly. Then, of course, second principle, we are there too, keep your soil covered as much as possible to keep the temperature down, protect the life in the soil and so forth, optimally by living plants and roots or by mulch and so forth. That we can also measure from space quite robustly, quite efficiently. And these two indicators make sense to measure year over year.
You want to see how you're doing, both the farmer trying to grow more photosynthesis and also us as a society, how much potential for ecosystem services are produced on that land. Then comes, of course, the outcome verification, which is soil health. Soil health has to be improving, but it makes no sense to measure soil health every year because there might have been a drought. It's quite costly, so we propose to measure it once a crop rotation or at least every 4 years if you don't have a crop rotation. And then, of course, you try to produce photosynthesis, which is both yields and ecosystem services, soil cover, and soil health with the least inputs possible. And if you do that every year a little bit better, you are on your regeneration journey. And this we published last year in our CAP position paper. And since then, we have been going into a pilot study, possibly the largest study on RegenAg in the world, to validate that, as Vincent was saying, we still have to show, continue to show, that what in the Green Deal discourse we still believed completely impossible. It was the basic, unwavering assumption that if we reduce inputs, we necessarily reduce yields. Those times are over, and I'll show you the empirics after this slide. And we call that, if you can produce more food, more biomass for our future bioeconomy, and more ecosystem services every year with less inputs, that's regenerating total factor productivity in economic terms. We want to also prove that there's a simple and robust measurability of that regenerating total factor productivity of our land. At the same time, we want to produce, with that study, fit for purpose, simple CAP result-based indicators that can couple our area-based payments to indicators that speak for farm income, for ecosystem services, and food security. Ultimately, we want to show that we can create a shared data infrastructure that is enabling what we call otherwise blended finance, our friend just said, or the public-private coherence of our data needs, which always have to have a double use case. We cannot take data from farmers that not also has a value for farmers to do better, farm better with nature in the next year. And we do that with a lot of farmer association, university, big companies, smaller companies, and we try to collect over 150 farmers. I will show you some preliminary results. The study will probably be published in May. And we are always comparing at a field level, and then we take per pioneering farmer 3 fields and compare them to a random average farmer in the same pedoclimatic context. So we are making fair comparison of the average farmers in the region with pioneering farmers. So we'll start in Finland with our amazing farmer Juuso, which is a pioneering regenerative organic arable farmer, among other things that he farms. And you see here, we are looking here at one specific field, his oats production. And you see that he is doing soil management, minimum tillage and drilling, whereas the average farmer in Finland grows oats by plowing. He is always growing undersown cover crops, whereas the average farmer in Finland has bare soil throughout the winter. He is using organic nitrogen inputs, which in his case come from a biodigester, which is producing heat for the village close by. And you can see the reductions in mineral contents. And in kalium, he's using more than the average. Then we see he's using no pesticides, whereas conventional use in active substance, 0.08 insecticides, fungicides, herbicides. And he's actually using less fuel than the average. Now, if we look at his yields, he's producing 90% less oats than the conventional average in Finland. On the other hand, I can say he's producing also 25% more oats per hectare than the average organic farmer in Finland. However, he's also producing additional biomass when the conventional farmer is not producing anything, and his gross margin is vastly outperforming that of the conventionals. Now, we are looking at many farmers in Finland. So far, we have looked at farmers in Finland who are producing barley, oats, rye, wheat, oil hemp, oilseed rape, peas, and fava beans. On average, these farmers we are looking at have land that is 38% more organic than the average land in Finland. You see here that on average, these farmers produce 6% less kilocalories per hectare than the average farmer in Finland. In proteins, 7% less, but they make a lot more money per hectare. And in terms of strategic autonomy, they'll use 60% less inputs that are not from their farm, that are not fossil. And then we heard it from Martin. Farmers need to produce water and reduce surface temperatures. So when we look at green water, we look through the satellites at the evapotranspiration of that land, so producing new clouds for the next cycle, and average surface temperatures throughout the years. Here, our Finnish farmers outperform average farmers by 6%. In emissions and removals, we are looking at fuel use, nitrogen use efficiency, and proxied SOC loss or growth, depending on photosynthesis and soil cover, etc., where farmers are 38% better. And in biodiversity, we look at pesticide use and soil disturbance events. And of those, the pioneering farmers have 45% less than the average farmers. So in short, they more or less produce the same, with making a lot more profit, while all of the ecosystem services and food security impacts are actually less. And we summarize all of that data in what we call regenerating total factor productivity, which is what also the OECD uses, total factor productivity, and they call it now sustainable total factor productivity. We develop it further. And now we see two satellite-based indicators, as you remember from the basis of our pyramid, photosynthesis and soil cover. And you see how the farmers continuously outperform their regional peers on those satellite-based indicators. Now we see Shila. You already got to know her. Shila is producing quite some incredible data. Once I got that data, I spent 3 days punching them if we don't have some mistakes here, but so far I have not found any. So Shila is doing no-till mulching cover crops, native weeds, nitrogen-fixing plants. She's doing syntropic agroforestry in comparison to the organic agroforestry that her dad did. And she's using no inputs, a part of the fuel she's using for harvesting and for mulching. On the other hand, you see inputs in our fruit production, and some of the farmers raised it here today. Conventional fruit and veggie production is also very, very, very bad. So we don't only have to care about intensive livestock, but intensive veggie and fruit production is super intensive. They put a lot of nitrogen fertilizer, a lot of fertilizer, and a lot of pesticides, which we here always made small, but you will get the deck afterwards, so you can go into the specific insecticides, glyphosate, etc., which all goes onto that orange and lemon field. So Shila is producing several cash crops on that same plot. Actually, she's also producing figs and mulberries and other stuff, but we left it out because this is the core cash crops. And you look at the productivity per hectare. So in oranges, she's doing a little bit less, in lemons also, but in the other two, she's vastly outperforming. So taken together per hectare, she's producing much more with radically less. And thereby, of course, also making double the amount of money than the average farmer. In Greece, we have so far looked at dry pulses, oilseeds, fresh vegetables, citrus fruits, stone fruits, palms, grapes, and olives. And again, you can see the summarize of the farmers outperforming the average farmers and see how it's overlapping with the two basic satellite indicators. Now we go to our European pride, the high yields of the best of our wheat belts, you know, stuff like Géraud is doing, 13 tons of wheat and so forth. So here we have Peter Fröhlich. He is in a very good soil region in the flatlands out of Zurich. And Peter is fusing a lot of stuff, but on the way of conservation agriculture, regenerative agriculture. And this is only 4 years after starting. So 4 years ago, Peter was actually the same as the average here. He was producing sugar beets the way has been produced for 20 years in Switzerland. He's reducing his inputs similarly to what Max just showed on conservation agriculture. Fuel by half, pesticides by almost 80%. He's actually able to cut even much more synthetic N than Max was able to show, which is connected to that Peter is not only doing one cover crop, but actually Peter is doing 2 cover crops with more than 20 species each. And he's producing more sugar beets than the neighbors. And of course, thereby also having a higher gross margin. Now we have run what Max just showed you, the GKB and ECAF study, through our data methodology. And you see again that they are outperforming 21%. And they actually have, of course, much higher soil cover and also higher whole year photosynthesis, although they are always compared to their very, very high input intensive neighbors. So far, preliminary results from all of the farmers that we have run through our system is that pioneering farms in Europe produce 38% more with less. And that on the 2 satellite-based indicators, on average, they outperform pioneers by 16%. So we propose that in a very context-specific way to where our CAP stands today and is area-based, we can connect with respect to IX, to the systems, how it works, how we have organic subsidies, those area-based payments to actually 2 indicators that speak for farm income, ecosystem service, productivity, and food security in a context-specific way, so by fair comparisons, farms with the same pedoclimatic context and the same land use category. But to do the blended finance and the coherence of public and private data, we can go further, because then if we understand the regeneration journey at its core being validated, if you continuously produce more with less and have better soil health over your crop rotations, then we can use that for validating, regenerating supply chains, all bunch of other regulations that are going out there, like the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the Deforestation Regulation, the Carbon Removal Certification Framework, the EU Taxonomy, the Soil Monitoring and Resilience Law, possible benchmarking, and we are also talking with the EIB on working out loan programs that can be responsive to this kind of regeneration journeys. We know that the transition, as Max had shown, is always super context specific. So each farmer, depending on the history of the farm, the cash crop that it's been used to grow, all of the different stuff that's influencing its economics, has different opportunity costs, investment costs, and operational costs to getting on that journey. So we estimated what it really takes to get integrally on the regeneration journey for 4 different, very standard today conventional agricultural systems in Germany. And you see, and then we upscale that on all of the arable land of Germany. So you see 40% we would need 100 hectare at least per year. On 30% even less than 100 hectare, but on 15% also 1,000 euros per hectare. So what does it take? We believe firstly it takes a mindset shift. The conventional farmer gets out of bed and thinks, how can I protect my cash crop by killing anyone that wants to interfere with them? In business, but also in public policy making, we got used to thinking, what are the risks that I can mitigate? So I prescribe measures, I regulate, I make micromanagement. The regenerative farmer gets out of bed and thinks, what can I support my cash crops with and the other life so that all can support each other? And I think that's also the mindset shift we can slowly and in a hybrid manner engage in with public policy making. Instead of only aiming at mitigating risk, we have to think of how can we enhance enabling milieus for regenerating performance for year over year over year improvement. So we think this regenerating data infrastructure can feed in the public realm, in the knowledge realm, but then of course also in the operational realm of farmers, so smart deals, transition insurance, discount on new loans, but also restructuring old loans. And this is a problem now, but we prepared for the annual money that we have available and a 6-year program. So you can see CAP payments, more or less, we have $350 per hectare a year. The member states already started paying a lot of money in emergency payments for farmers, for droughts, for flooding, but always never in an adaptation enhancing way. So if we actually can take that money of member states also in a way that's improving year over year performance, that would be great. Farmers receive also tax relief. We all know the last demonstrations in Germany after the fuel tax relief was out there to be cutted. But then we think insurance and debt has a huge influence. European farmers actually have as much debt, 450 billion, as we do as a turnover yearly in the agricultural sector. So if we can supply transition insurance for farmers to mitigate the risks in the beginning, where we estimate about $200 per year per hectare, that would be amazing. Then we can have restructuring of existing debt. So for example, a farmer could restructure 30% of its debt if it's proving that the farm is improving year over year, because that increases the value of the loan on the book of the banks, because it has less risk of being in default. So we are, by synergizing ourselves, creating money more or less out of nothing, like the financial system likes to do these days. And then, of course, there is a bigger risk and exposure mitigation, which we haven't quantified yet, for back insurances, for big banks. Tonight we will have a great woman from Rabobank who did a 3 billion loan package to restructure debts to mitigate their risks of defaulting debts in their agricultural programs. However, that was a practice-based approach. So they were trying to give new debt at lower interest rates, and the farmers didn't take it. They only got 200 million of it away because they didn't integrate yet the mindset shift of giving the trust and enabling environment to the farmers instead of prescribing them what to do, because we believe some sustainability benefits lie behind some practice. Then, of course, offtake. We talk about smart deals. We can think about the supermarket scent. We can think about this, now got completely lost here. Of course, also carbon markets. But just to give you a differential, we see in our data, it's
realistic for our conventional farmers to get on the regeneration journey in a capacity that's manageable for them and so forth, that we can maybe per year mitigate 2 tons of carbon and maybe sequester 1. Not everyone is as good as Sergi, going from 1.3 to 3 and bing. So, but that is then, if we take a carbon price of 20, 30 bucks, which is already a lot for voluntary carbon markets, that's 30, maybe 90 bucks per hectare. So we really have to understand that transition insurance, debt restructuring, CAP in an outcome-based manner, national member state money, emergency payments in an outcome-based manner. If those come together with smart deals like Géraud is making so wonderfully explicit, we can have a blended finance that works on a shared understanding of the regeneration journey, and then everyone can tap in, and we can enable actually our 75% of farmers and lands and hearts and minds to get on a regeneration journey. So to summarize, the global agricultural innovation leap of regenerating forms of agriculture is well on its way. We believe in Europe we have some of the world's leading pioneering farmers in that agricultural revolution. Let's enable all our farmers in Europe to lead us into regenerating times.
Just that. No, thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for sticking around, clearly, by a pretty full room. I think this means that people are interested in what we had to say today. Thank you to everyone who stayed with us online. We know it's been a lot, and we know that there's a lot of questions that we haven't gotten to on the Slido. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to answer those questions and get them into our brand new LinkedIn community, where we're going to be sharing everything that we're doing along the way during our European tour. But I'll talk about that in just a second. What are we doing this week? I know some of you will be joining us for the whole week. Those of you who are joining us at the European Parliament tonight, thank you again for taking the time out of your schedules to do that. We're so blessed and happy about the response of the high-level folks who are coming. Even Mark's boss is coming. Andy's boss is coming, sorry. Andy's boss is coming, so that's very exciting. Tomorrow, some of you will be joining us for our all-day co-creation event, where we'll be doing the multi-stakeholder process to really start outlining what that policy ask could be coming together into the CAP reform proposal process, which is launching in the next couple of months, which is also the inspiration for our tour. And then on Friday, I don't know how many of you are signed up. We still have spots, even though I think there's like 50 or 60 people, but I think we may still have spots to, maybe not. Jérôme's giving me a dirty look. No, you are late. You are late signing up. We are completely overbooked for the farm tour on Friday to go to Géraud's place. But don't worry, we'll be back here on the same bat time, same bat channel next year. And that's really where we're going to talk about next. So for the rest of this year, we'll be coming to Denmark. Thanks to our friends at Top 50 Farmers, we'll be hitting Denmark. Vamos a España, claro que sí. Germany, Cyprus, and Italy, and then we'll be hitting the rest of the countries on our tour next year. So for the tour, we're going to have our Regeneration week here in Brussels. Again, first week of February. Keep it on your calendars. Then we will be back at the end of the tour in February 2027, so we can share all of those results, all of these opportunities to share more time with our farmers. And it was there, but now I'm going to back up really fast. Nobody look, don't get seasick, it's fine. And I'm going to show you guys the,
It's also here printed out. So if you see here on the walls and on outside and on the door, you saw the QR code.
Here it is,
That
here it is.
yeah.
Yay! I made it
So
work.
please scan it in and join the LinkedIn community, and we're going to continue the conversation there. And it's not about just these places and like sharing the word, but then to continue the collaboration. This is what we're going to do also within the LinkedIn community. There's a lot of words spoken out always on events, but let's continue that collaboration. And I think we need really this coordinated action. And this is what we're going to do with the LinkedIn community and with the tour overall.
Yeah, and we will get the answers to the Slido in there, not this week, but we will get them loaded in there so everybody gets what they need to know. Thank you so, so much. And remember, get to know your neighbor farmers. Okay, thank you.